Welcome to the what I am now going to officially call the Sibling Rivalry podcast. I am here with Michelle. Michelle, how's it going?
It's going good.
So, just like last year we did this whole podcast that was encompassing the whole year of our Backlog challenge. It was about who could beat the most games, me or my sister, in 1 year. And we're doing that this year, but last year was a 6-hour podcast. And it's a lot of time to take to watch a video, and it's a lot of time to record it, and it's real lot of time to edit it. So hopefully we're going to do it quarterly from now on, and that'll make it allow us more time to talk about the games, and it won't take 6 hours for us to record it either. So
Yeah.
that'll be nice. But what's been going on, Michelle? How are things with you?
Pretty good. It's definitely a lot slower than last year so far.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to stay that way.
What's interesting, the job I work, I have to switch basically every quarter, every 3 months, I switch from day shift to night shift. And that happened in early January. I went back to day shift, and that's always a transition. There's always like a period of like switching your schedules around. You don't play a lot of games, and also just when I moved back to day shift, I spend time with my family more often during the days. Because when I'm on night shift, I actually stay awake at nights, even on the weekends. And there's nothing to do on nights except for play video games. So that's a great time. So I transitioned to nights, or transitioned back to day shift. So I have, of course, there would be someone on a motorcycle right now outside, being annoying. Anyway, so I transitioned back to day, so I have a lot less time, and just last year was crazy.
Yeah.
If you didn't watch the last 6-hour podcast that we did about this back in December, I'll have it linked in the description or the iCard or whatever. But we beat about 230 games between us, a little bit less than that, and that's insane. And up to this point, I was looking, Michelle, and we had beaten about 40 games between us by this time. A little bit less than 40 games. This year's a little different, right?
It's like, what, half that?
Right, about half that. I think we're at 24 between us both. And I don't know what you think about this, but I think it's absolutely the burnout from what happened in the last little month or two of last year.
Definitely. I just wanted to chill out at the beginning of the year this time.
Because I think we beat probably 60 games between us in like the last 3 months, maybe.
Yes. I think even in the last month, like, it was ridiculous. There's probably at least 30 games in the last month alone.
And some of those are very short, but it was also like we were going out of our way to push ourselves to beat these games.
Yes.
And as soon as the competition ended, it was just like this sigh of relief and a weird moment of, I don't want to play games right now.
Yeah.
But also Christmas did happen, and so I got some new games. You got some new games. So there was stuff to play, and they were some substantial games to play. So we had a decent amount of things to get to, but we wanted to spend our time on them. You know, we didn't want to just beat them.
Not try and rush through just to beat them.
Sure.
Just to win.
Sure. So this year, starting off a little slow. Things could always pick up later. I
don't think they'll end up picking up for me later. I think you're gonna hit a point in the summer where you're gonna be like just shooting ahead of me.
We'll see. Because, and we'll talk about it a little bit more later, but my plans for the rest of the year, and plans are always changing with video games and me, but my plans are not that different than the start of this year. But just to be clear, this competition runs from December 25th to December 24th. So it actually started technically last year. It runs all the way to the next Christmas. We do it that way because Christmas is when you get a bunch of games usually. So it's kind of like a good starting point. So we actually ended on December 25th. The first game is not beaten until January 9th. That's a long period of time. Last year, I don't have the
I
other
think I
spreadsheet up, but I think it was within the first day.
Yeah, I
Something was
think it was
beaten.
me, and I think I beat it like the 26th or something.
Right, and I don't think I was too far behind that. But for you, it wasn't until the ninth. And you beat Pikmin 3.
Yep. My husband and I decided to co-op Pikmin 3 because that's something I got him for Christmas.
This is on the Switch, correct? Not the Wii U.
Yes, I actually didn't even realize it came out on the Wii U.
Yeah, quite a long
Like,
time ago, actually.
yeah. Um, it was a good game. It definitely wasn't as good as I was hoping it would be. It was kind of weird because it really seemed like it wasn't made to be a co-op game, and they just kind of threw that in there just because.
That's what I've heard, actually.
Um, and it was just, it really felt like a GameCube game, like in terms of the controls and stuff, which was
Mm-hmm.
bad. It's only acceptable like when it's on the console that, when it's on the GameCube. Like when you've gone past that and you haven't updated things, like there's like the targeting is awful. You can't just pick what you want to target. It targets whatever it perceives to be closest to you, which
Mm.
may be out of your camera range, like out of your field of view. And that was really annoying, and switching between the characters was really cumbersome, even with two people. So I can only imagine how bad it was in single player trying to switch between three characters and like work all of that.
It actually makes me wonder if it being a Wii U title, the controls on that, and I don't know how it works, right? Maybe on the Wii U, it used the gamepad in some way that made that whole process
Yeah,
better. Like maybe you could tap
yeah.
the character you wanted or select exactly who
Because
you wanted to target, or maybe it
because
doesn't.
it's been a long time since I've played a game where I like couldn't get the hang of the controls. It's just kind of weird. Like switching between characters was like a weird set of button presses. That's just, it's like it didn't have a standard for how they did the controls for the game. It was just kind of like, yeah, this, we'll just map this to this button and that to that button, and just kind of until we ran out of buttons to use. So
Did you play the other two Pikmin games, or is this the first one you played?
I've played a little bit of the second game a long time ago, but for the most part, this is the first one.
Interesting.
And I honestly think that one of the first other two games would have been better.
Maybe your expectations would be different because you're playing it on a GameCube. You know, it's like, okay, I'm playing a GameCube game on a GameCube, not a GameCube game on my
Yeah,
Switch.
yeah, you can kind of like you just have slightly lower expectations for older games. You just kind of know what to expect going in, whereas this was like,
Especially in regards to controls, right? Because
yes,
old games, they were still trying to figure
they
it
just
out. You know,
exactly.
now if you
Um,
play a game and the sprint button's not on one of those like three or four obvious buttons, you're
you're
like,
like, this
why?
is some bullshit. Why'd they do this?
I'm. It's so funny. I'm actually just now playing Mass Effect 2, and its sprint buttons on like some really weird, like hold down the X while being in this mode. It's like, well, why can't I just press the
Oh,
analog stick in like anything else?
the analog stick, or even one of the like L1 or R1. Some of them used to use that as well for running.
Yeah, it's not bad either. But anyway, Pikmin 3, man,
It
it
was
it's a very
it's
pretty looking game.
It really does look fantastic. I will say that the graphics look great, and it's very charming. Like you collect fruit, and they just like name it weird stuff because they don't know what it's called. So
That's
an
cool.
orange was like a sun bulb or something.
So, do you play Pikmin 4 when it comes out? Because it's in development. They
Oh,
said
I don't know.
that. Oh,
I don't know if
so
it's kind of up to Ferris if he wants to play it, because
I got you. So
I mostly
knowing
got this for him.
So you didn't have the desire. If Pikmin
Yeah.
4 falls in your lap, sure, when it comes out, you're not gonna rush out and buy it.
Yeah, let's be honest. I mean, it's not like it's gonna go down in price or anything. It's gonna be expensive forever. So it doesn't matter
Oh
if I
yeah.
buy it when it comes out or if I buy it 3 years later.
Knowing Nintendo, who knows how long it's even gonna be available? You know? Could
Exactly.
be New Super Mario Brothers where it's available. You see it at Walmart even now, or it could be like the other Mario game where it's not even available tomorrow or whatever. By the time this podcast is out. Um, Pikmin 3 always looked pretty interesting to me, but I'm always the type of person I want to play the first two games, and Pikmin
Yeah, they're
2 in
just so
particular.
expensive now.
Yes.
I think even when they came out and they on the Wii with the Nintendo Selects, I'm pretty sure those got
Mhm.
expensive too.
And those ones look like the better versions too with the pointer
Yeah.
controls, but man, they're so expensive. But sometimes you just gotta look at games when they come out. Sometimes you can see games and you go, yeah, this is gonna get expensive if I don't buy it
Yeah.
now. But when am I gonna play it? And what if, like 15 years down the line they re-release it again. Then I'm gonna feel dumb. I'm actually feeling that way right now. I just read a report that PSN is actually on the PS3 is actually going to close up in a few months.
Yes. Yeah,
So
Farrah showed me that, and I was like,
isn't that
fuck.
funny, Michelle? We were just like planning for this basically last year, and
Yeah.
we were right. We were right. It is closing down, and a
I'm,
lot of stuff has already been taken off of it. I saw a lot of Square Enix, all of Square Enix titles are
ooh,
gone,
that's
except
rough.
for a couple. But a lot of big ones are gone. So I had to. I looked through it again today, and I was like, man, there's some RPGs, but with RPGs, I'm like, man, when am I really gonna get to it? So,
Yeah,
I'm
because I've also been worried about the 3DS store as well. Like
that's a
ever
great
since we talked about
great point.
PSN, I started buying up like the digital only 3DS games that I wanted and stuff on the
Right.
eShop because
I
I know
think
it's
I
going to
need to
close
do that
eventually.
too. I need to do that too. I actually kind of want to buy the original Pokemon games. Just because my old cards, the batteries are dead on them. Can't play them anymore.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird, right? Because let's be honest, I could just emulate them if I wanted to. They're on
Yeah,
my computer right here, but it's not the same. Um, but
I agree.
digital, such a mess. Physical's a mess too, but digital is just even
And
worse.
it sucks because some of the games I want digitally on the eShop are games that have physical copies, but they've become so ridiculously
Hmm.
expensive. Like the last Professor Layton game that I don't have, Azran Legacy, it's like $85 without even
Yes,
having the case or anything,
it's so
and it's 40.
ridiculous.
And it sucks because digitally I still have to pay $40 for it because Nintendo
Hmm.
just doesn't. They don't put that game on sale. But it's like, I mean, they're going to pay $40. I'm just never going to get to play it, you know?
Right, and that would be the one. That's kind of how it is. Like, if that was the only game in your life you wanted to play, I guess you would pay it. Just
Yeah.
$85, but there's also like 1,000 other games you want to play. So
Yeah, exactly.
it's like I'm not gonna spend $80 on it. They'll either re-release it or I guess I won't play it.
Yeah.
Um, digital, such a mess. Wait until game streaming starts happening and everything's all super weird. Anywho, so you beat Pikmin 3 first, starting off your challenge way late into January, all the way on the
Hmm.
9th. And the whole time I've been playing, I think even before the challenge ended last year, I'd started on Last of Us Part 2. I played the original Last of Us, I think 2 years ago. I bought it like within the first year of me owning the PS4. I bought Last of Us Remastered. Everyone said, oh, get it, it's a great game. I bought it, but I wasn't hot on Uncharted games, so I was kind of like, whatever, we'll see. And it is good. I played it last year, right? It was part of my part of
Oh
the
yeah.
video last time. I forgot about that. So it was a good game. I quite enjoy it. So Last of Us Part 2 is coming out. I waited for it to drop all the way to $30, I think, on Black Friday, and finally got around to playing it. This game is very, it's similar tonally to the first game, but it's also very different.
Mhm.
First game is very obvious, very basic zombies, and then you got the father daughter relationship going on. You can tell what's going on based on the cover. You're like, okay, that's a adult
Yeah.
man and that's a child. We understand where this is going. Um, that's not what the second game is about. The second game is about pain. Um, it's one of those ones where there's like in the first game there's a nice clean resolution but you get the idea of what the story they're telling. By the end I was just like, of Last of Us Part 2, I was like, just fucking end this game. I don't want to see this anymore. I don't want to see these characters hurt anymore. Like when people just start making decisions that are just reckless, terrible decisions
Mhm.
just because they're hurt. But anyway, good game. The combat is very similar to the first game. You get these little gadgets and stuff, and use them to stealth your monsters. And it's funny, the monsters are actually the least threatening thing in the game. The other people with guns and stuff. They're more threatening always,
Huh.
because they can shoot you from the long range.
Yeah, yeah.
The zombies, some of the zombies, especially the clickers, they can kill you in one hit. But the
Oh yeah.
humans, they're the ones shooting at you. They can be very annoying.
The
Um,
clickers were very scary for me in the the first game. I don't think I realized for like quite a ways into the game that they were actually blind, and I was like, oh.
Yeah.
I was like, the clicking also maybe makes sense if they're doing some kind of like little, I don't
Like
know, echolocation.
echolocation.
Yeah.
Because if they get close to you, they will charge at you. So
Hmm.
you can't be too much in their face. So maybe they are doing some type of echolocation. They probably explain that in the game, but who
Yeah, I
knows?
don't remember at this point though. For me, it's been quite a while since I played the first game.
Yeah. Last of Us Part 2 also had some pretty neat locations. Some scaling going on that had some really cool environments. Like when I think about the first game, I actually can't remember very many cool environments, but I can remember some from the second game. I don't want to say what they are, but they were pretty epic in just the way they looked. So they stood out a lot. So that was good. And overall, I thought it was a really good game. And I liked the way it ended, even though it was painful.
And didn't it get a pretty mixed reception when it came out?
It did. And the reasons are spoiler based, but basically,
Oh.
it's like discrimination plays a part of it, right?
Hmm.
There are certain classes of people that are in the games, and people don't like when that happens.
Yeah.
Because they see it as like, what's the word, Michelle? Not catering.
Oh.
You know what I'm talking about, though.
Yeah.
Pandering. They see it
Yeah.
as pandering. But when you play the game, it actually all flows pretty naturally, and you're like, okay, this actually works with the story pretty well, in my opinion. So I didn't see it as pandering, even if it was. I don't know if that would be a problem, but I did like it. It was a very good game, and it took risks. It took risks, and I liked that. Because it could have just been the same thing, basically. It could have been like, okay,
Yes.
here's the dad guy, and the girl's grown up. But man, it takes some turns, some sharp turns early, some sharp turns later on, does some shit that you don't like, and it's not afraid to do it. I'm proud of that. It did have some pacing issues, I think, and so did the first game, where you're going through these large sections of linear stealth gameplay, and eventually you're just kind of like, okay, get on with it. Let's get to the next story
Yeah.
beat. There's like a whole part of this game where it's like, okay, that was for nothing. We didn't find the person we're looking for, so now we're just going somewhere else,
Yeah, it kind of seems like it's just artificially extending the
Right. And
gameplay.
and that's the thing. The first game wasn't a short game. I think it was like 15 hours. This game is like 25, 30 hours.
Oh God.
Way longer. And
Yeah.
this is a third person, you know, or not character action, like stealth third person shooter game.
This ain't no RPG.
Right, but it sure did have the length of one. So it took me a long time to actually beat it. So this whole time I actually was playing this from Christmas. And it just took me a long time to beat it. So when it's actually so funny because I saw you hadn't beaten any games, and I was like, okay, we're on the same mindset. I saw you beat Pikmin 3. I was like, oh shit, here we go, here we go. But luckily I beat Last of Us Part 2 soon afterwards, so it all worked out.
And Pikmin 3 wasn't super long, but I think I was also playing this next game while I played Pikmin 3,
Mm-hmm.
and that is Phoenix Wright Dual Destinies.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the first 3DS only, like digital only Ace Attorney game that came out. They didn't come out with it physically, which people were pretty upset about.
I do remember that people were pissed.
Yeah, which is funny because I'm like, you guys know there are two spin-off games, or I'm sorry, one spin-off game that never even came out here at all. Like, and you guys are getting upset over Dual Destinies, which is. I actually just went back and changed my rating on Dual Destinies.
What do you have it originally?
I had it a 4-star.
And you changed it to a 3, huh?
Yeah, because I like it. It's a good game, but this is something you just mentioned with The Last of Us that you like that they took risks in the game. Ace Attorney never does that. If you have played the first Ace Attorney game, you have played them all. You literally have.
Oh, okay.
Now, in my opinion, where like the fourth game is where it kind of stopped. The fourth game in the spin-offs is kind of where you can stop if you want to. Because while Dual Destinies is a good game and I enjoyed it, it's just I've just been there, done that. I've seen all this. They have all the exact same types of characters in every game. Like, it may be a new prosecutor, but he still acts in a very similar way to all the other prosecutors. You may be playing as Apollo instead of Phoenix Wright, but Apollo is very similar to Phoenix Wright, and he always has like a female companion in every game. There's always the female companion, and usually one of your own always gets accused at some point, and you have to save them. And this game's just no different.
Do you think some of it is because you played like all of them last year almost? You played so many Phoenix, right? Because I remember when this was coming out, a lot of people seemed happy with it because they actually haven't had one in a while, at least in America.
Yeah, I was kind of looking things up, actually, and apparently a lot of people feel like Dual Destinies is one of the worst Ace Attorney games.
Sure.
And the next game, Spirit of Justice, they think is one of the best, which I am
that's good.
playing through that right now.
It can only go up from here, huh?
Yeah, from what I've seen, though, it also seems kind of like the exact same game.
You should have given it more of a break.
Like, I think the cases in Dual Destinies just, they were good. They just weren't quite great. They weren't enough of a level to really set it apart from any of the other games in the series. So for me, like, Dual Destinies and 2 are still the worst games in the series. I actually think I'd put Dual Destinies over 2 because 2 just got really, really bogged down and really grindy after a certain point.
Is it one of those things where even though the games aren't as good, just because it's Phoenix Wright, you're just like, I'm down. I'm here for a good time.
Yeah,
Take me for the ride. Whatever.
I was like, even if I get kind of like, I don't want to say bored, even if I feel like it's kind of all the same, it's not like I know I'm not in for a bad time, but I will say at the same time, like, I'm playing the last game in the series now, and I'm kind of like, I don't think it's a bad thing that I haven't made any more of these, because I don't think they will. I think they're done. Because they have a new spin-off series now that's only in Japan, that they're doing, that already has like 2 games in it. So
maybe that's where they're shifting focus anyway, and now we gotta beg for those to get localized.
Oh God, I doubt they will. I think they were on the 3DS, so I think that ship's already sailed.
It's already gone. So, man, changing the ratings. I hate to do it.
Sometimes you just have a different perspective later on.
After you think about it for a few minutes, you're like, did I really like it, or did I really just want to like it that much, But yeah. So that's your second game for the year. My second game for the year, I was also playing since Christmas, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. I watched Dragon Ball for the first time in about 2014. Started at the very beginning, Dragon Ball. Watched the uncut Funimation dubs all the way through Dragon Ball Z. Earlier this year, I've actually started watching Super. Again, I started over. Got all the way. I actually was just watching it earlier. I'm in the final arc, episode 105 or so. So we're getting into some real shit. I'm in the zone for Dragon Ball right now. I love the world of Dragon Ball. Not all Dragon Ball is good. Some of it I would call bad. Some of it's overrated. But even then, even when it's not great, I just enjoy being in those worlds. I find it very interesting. So to me, there's never been a Dragon Ball Z game that really encompass what I like about Dragon Ball Z.
Which isn't just the fighting.
Right. I mean, I want some fighting, sure, but I want to be in the world. I want to see the characters, I remember growing up, you had a Naruto game on 360.
Yes.
And to me, I was like, why don't they make a Dragon Ball game like this? Because that had a world you could walk around in. It probably wasn't like quite like Kakarot is, where it's just flat out open world, but it was pretty open. You could go around and be in that, be in the Hidden Leaf Village, right? That's what it was.
Yep. That was the only game on my 360 I was sad that I had to give up.
Right. And hasn't been released on anything else, right? So
no.
But Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, It's actually my favorite game of the year so far. Um, Man, it did such a fantastic job of encompassing the Dragon Ball Z story, expanding upon it, adding all these little details for things that you didn't even know you cared about. Some things you would always like speculate, like, that's interesting. I would like to see this interaction happen, and they'll do it, you know? Do you remember how far did you get in Dragon Ball Z?
We actually finished Dragon Ball Z.
Okay. Do you remember how there were next to no animal people in Dragon Ball Z? Even though there were a ton of animal people in the original Dragon Ball? Did you know?
Yeah, it's like in Dragon Ball Z, there were animal people randomly in the crowds, but there weren't people that they interacted with.
Right. And in this game, there's some random side quest that like explains it. Like they call them the Beastmen, and they're in the world, but they're not very many of them. But there was a weird fashion trend where people put on like Capsule Corp costumes and made themselves look like Beastmen.
Oh,
And
that's so interesting.
that's a terrible explanation. But it was explained, and I was like, "Oh, that's cool."
And
That's
it's kind of just goofy and fun.
and they used it into the side quest because there were these beastmen that were robbing banks or something, and it ended up being regular people in the little costumes, and it all
I
came
do
together.
really want to play Kakarot still, especially now that I actually finished Dragon Ball Z. We haven't started Super yet because I needed a break because we've been watching Dragon Ball Z for like 6 months, so
Right.
kind of just
And
the series is long.
Super starts off, I'm not gonna lie to you, bad, because it's going off of those movies, and those movies were
And I
not
haven't
meant
watched
to
any of the
be.
movies.
They were not meant to be arcs. They were meant to
Yeah.
be movies, but they make them arcs, so it just drags its damn feet. I swear the main villains of them, like of the movies.
No.
Like if I said their names, would you be like, don't?
I don't know.
Okay. Okay,
No
I won't.
opinion.
I won't then. Okay, but the first villain of the Super arc, they fight for so long, and I understand that's a Dragon Ball trope, but golly, they fight forever. And,
That kind of reminds me of like really the first arc of Dragon Ball Z with Frieza. That was fucking awful.
oh yeah.
Just
Yeah.
burn it in a fire, please.
And it's like when you think back, right, about like Toonami and kids watching it every week. They had 2 episodes every week, I believe. You're like, okay, I understand why it's built this way.
Was it actually on Toonami though? Wasn't Dragon Ball Z actually a part of Adult Swim? Because Dragon Ball Z is not a children's show. It's not at all. Like the original Dragon Ball, I can see them passing off, but Dragon Ball Z was not for young kids. It was for like teenagers and
Dragon Ball
older
Z
kids.
actually was on Toonami, and Dragon Ball Z came out first before Dragon Ball,
yeah.
and it was on Toonami, and it was heavily censored. So
Yeah,
don't-
because I was like, there are parts that honestly, even as an adult, I was like, this seems a little too far.
Mm-hmm.
We're like beating children. This isn't okay.
Oh, are you talking about like Wei-In and Boo's arc or whatever?
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, I guess even early because Gohan's a child.
yeah.
I think he still gets beat up. I don't think that mattered to him. But anyway, I've never seen the Ocean dub or how they used
Yeah.
to. I've never seen it. So, anywho, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. Man, what a great game. The combat is super shallow. You got your combo, super simple, and then you have your special attacks that you can map to like the triangle button. So simple, but just the way it goes through the story with such grace and like just simple things like you go to Namek, right? And you explore Namek, like that's great. You're just flying around Namek. And what's cool too is when you think about the Dragon Ball story, right? Goku's obviously the main character, but Goku's not there a lot of times.
Yes, he's usually off like dicking around. Like, there's like Goku's gonna be like training for like 6 episodes,
Right.
or like in the healing pod for like the next 10 episodes.
In fact, most of the build-up, I would say he's probably dead.
yeah.
He's probably dead most of the time. But while in those parts in the game, you're playing as Gohan, and that's awesome. Or you're playing as Vegeta, and that's great. And there's all these little simple things that are built into the game that don't really have a purpose. Like you can make food, right? And it helps boost your
Hmm.
stats. But there's like a whole little cutscene of them eating a bunch of food at the table with it. And it's like, oh, this is great. Or,
That kind of reminds me of Sakuna, actually, because you
yeah,
can boost your stats temporarily with food.
right. And I don't know how helpful it is in there. In Dragon Ball, it's just like, well, I did it, but did I need to do it? No, because I was going to beat everything's ass anyway. Um, oh man, there's this whole extra, like, in the open world there would be these extra hard enemies, right? We see this typically in open world
Hmm.
games where, oh, it's the extra hard version, they're 30 levels above you, and you can beat them a little early or you can wait until later. And I was just doing it because I was just loving the game, and I was just doing it, and like it totally had this huge story payoff that tied into like a totally different game.
Hmm.
uh that I was like, I didn't even know that game was canon, but I was just like, oh, that's awesome. And it went all the way through the Boo arc and loved every bit of it. You got to play as characters that, like, you got to play as Gotenks, like that's
Oh,
awesome.
uh-huh.
Um, because Gotenks is actually one of the cooler characters in Dragon Ball Z because he has cool moves. He's like shooting ghosts or whatever the hell he was doing. Um, Such a great game, so good, in fact, that the moment I beat it, I sat down the controller and said, I would like to play more.
That's always like the best sign when you just want to immediately play more of a game or replay it.
And I don't have that often.
Oh yeah,
Rarely
for
ever.
sure.
Once the credits roll, no matter how much I love the game, I'm like, oh, I'm done. Even if there were
Yeah.
sub stories or side quests I didn't complete, I don't care. I'm done. It could be a 5-star game, which this is, but it could be, and I still wouldn't go back to it. I beat this game and said, I'm not done. And immediately bought the season pass. There were 2 DLCs out. One of them goes in. They're both based on the first 2 super arcs, very slightly, meaning that the main villain of those 2 arcs are who you fight, but it's like so loosely, like it doesn't follow the story at all. It's just a reason to
Hmm.
fight them, basically, and it raises the level cap substantially. So, but like I enjoyed doing it, and I did all of it, and I did all the side quests in them too. I did every side quest in the game. I think my trophy percentage is 97%.
Oh god.
The only one I didn't get was the one that required me to eat more meals because I didn't get the full course meals at my house, but like once, because you always had to go to Goku's house, and
Uh-huh.
I just didn't happen to be there a lot. But that was the only one I think I didn't get. And what's awesome is when I beat those 2, I was like, I'm not done yet. And I, but there's nothing left to do, so I had to be done. I beat even like training modes. I beat all of it, and I
That is,
actually,
and that's so extremely rare for you to go out of your way to complete a game, not to just
right,
come back to it, but to like go for completion, basically.
right. There's a couple things that I didn't do. Do you remember in Dragon Ball Z? There's a part where Goku and Piccolo get their driver's license.
Yes. Oh my god.
So that's in the game. And so you can just drive cars, right?
And it's like,
Not
why do you need to do this when you can just
right.
fly?
They're so slow. But there's these little racing side quests or little mini games you can
Yeah.
do, which add nothing, and they're not actually factored into trophies or completion, I don't think. So there's no reason to do them outside of a few quests that require you to do them.
But you
But
can.
just that it's there is cool. So, and there's quite a substantial like upgrade your car system built into it. It's like, okay, this is totally unnecessary, but and just you meet these characters too, like from the original Dragon Ball, like in side quests that have nothing to do with the main game. You can collect the Dragon Balls, Michelle, in your spare time and make wishes. You can just make wishes for money, just if you want
That's
to.
great. I love that.
I summoned the dragon like 15 times because you can actually resummon old enemies too, and you get stuff for that. But man, it was so good. And I just saw the trailer a couple of days ago for the final DLC's coming out, and it's going to be about the Trunk saga, basically what
Mhm.
was occurring with him before he came back, or maybe it's after he already goes back. I can't remember. Um, I couldn't tell from the trailer, but so I don't know if it's before he decided to come back and he's losing to the androids, or if it's after he came back and killed the androids himself. But I'm so interested because that looks awesome. I would love to, because to me the stuff with in the Cell Saga surrounding Trunks is some of the best stuff in the whole series. Just having these dark Terminator-esque worlds they come from.
I agree.
Very cool. Love it. So I'm very interested in seeing more. But Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, that's my number one for the year so far, honestly. But you weren't too far behind with your next game.
Yeah, we're kind of just going back and forth for a good bit here. I don't know what it was. After playing through a really long game like Phoenix Wright, I just kind of really didn't want to play any more games that involved like just sitting down and reading a lot.
Oh yeah.
So I decided to just like take a hard like left turn and come to my PlayStation 2 and pick up a game that I've had for about a few years ago called Dog's Life. And I had wanted this game since I was a kid because we had like I don't know if we actually even had a demo for it or if I just saw like a trailer on a demo disc.
I think it was on G4 quite a bit. We saw it.
It's a really weird little game though. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like a Japanese game because it seems like it would be. It just seems weird.
This is the one with smell-o-vision, right?
Yes, you can play as a dog and you have smell-o-vision. You can see scent trails, and those play into the quests quite a lot, where you can follow trails for items that you need to get for somebody, or just collect a certain amount of a color of a scent, and it will start a race or like a peeing competition or a tug of war or something like that with another dog that you can basically unlock and play as, at least in the area that you're in, and that'll usually help you solve some other kind of puzzle that's in that area. It's a pretty cool little game. It's very definitely
unique.
It's a very PlayStation 2-y PlayStation 2 game.
Now, were you saying that in a positive way or a kind of iffy way?
In a mostly positive way.
Okay. Okay.
You definitely have a few instances where the camera likes to get stuck behind like buildings and stuff. If you whip it around the building, it gets caught. Stuff like that. And Jake, the dog you play as, he doesn't always like have like the best turn radius. He feels a little bit weird to control sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But this is like a very easygoing game that was probably made for a much younger audience, so it didn't really matter. I really enjoyed it. I actually played more than what I had to. Like I was able to. You have to get a certain amount of dog bones to save your girlfriend, basically.
Another dog?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, not another not like a person. They didn't make it that weird. And her name's Daisy. You kind of like have to get bones to be able to unlock certain areas, and that's kind of how you progress. You have to get the bones by doing the races or the side quests and that kind of thing, or just digging them up. Where if you find a place to dig, you can dig up a bone. And I had enough bones to go and like save Daisy from being turned into dog food, because I guess that's
from what?
Getting turned into dog food. Apparently, there's this woman who's like sent these dog catchers out to catch dogs and make them into. Actually, I'm sorry. I think they're being made into cat food. I think that's what this is happening. I think she's likes cats or something, and is like murdering dogs and turning them into cat food. Something like that.
What?
Yeah, it actually is pretty dark when you think about it. But I had enough bones, and I was just like going around and like going to some other areas that I didn't even realize I'd missed, like whole areas that I never saw in the game. So you definitely don't have to do like everything linearly. You can kind of just go through the areas how you want.
Mm-hmm. Do as much as you want, as little as you want.
Yeah, as long as you have enough bones to progress, which you honestly almost always will. So it was a really fun time though. It was only like, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 hours, but I'd come back to it just to, I don't know, collect more bones for completion just for fun sometime. So
Sure.
it's not a great game by any means, but it's, I only paid like $6 for it when I bought it, and it's certainly worth that.
It's worth playing, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, what other game are you going to be able to sniff other dogs' butts in? Like,
hopefully none. Hopefully none.
Yeah.
I don't want to see any more like that, actually.
Uh,
So you're on your third game, B. I actually was doing my backlog challenge for the month. Man, at the start of the year, I was like, oh man, I want to make sure I'm on the right track this year. I don't want to be doing a bunch of easy challenges just because I'd rather play my other games. Let's play an RPG. What a dumb challenge to start with. I barely can beat RPGs as it is. And at the time, I was like trying to only do games I could record easily on my computer. So I was playing Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, which you could definitely argue is an RPG because it's got stats and all that jazz.
mm-hmm.
But I was like, okay, I gotta play a different one because I want to record it. So I played Shadowrun Returns, which I had on my mind because Cyberpunk it came out, right? And wasn't doing so hot. Still wasn't really doing hot. I noticed it's still not on the PlayStation Store.
Not surprised.
Not surprised. And so Shadowrun Returns, isometric RPG with combat similar to XCOM, where you can take cover behind stuff and it's turn-based. Fun game. People really like this game, and I think some of what they like about it is it's returning sort of to what they like about Shadowrun, because Shadowrun was pretty popular on the SNES and the Genesis. And then it went away, and there was like a weird first-person shooter at some point that no one cared about, and now it returned to form somewhat, with it being a story-based RPG. This is a pretty short game, 10 hours I think I clocked in, not even counting time, and that's accounting for time I walked away from the computer or whatever and left it up. And the story actually, for me, takes a bit to get going. It starts off really basic of this guy got killed. He says, if you can catch my killer, we'll give you like $1 million or something. That's very basic, and that's how it continues for about half of the game. And then there's a twist where it kind of picks up steam a little bit towards the middle, but it wasn't like super. It didn't grab me right away. Towards the end, it was better. And I also made the mistake of I tried to pick a unique class, because there's this whole hacking element to the game, so you can hack into panels and it'll go into like a totally different cyber arena. It's still the same type of combat where it's grid, or not grid based, but it's, I guess you could call it grid based, where you're trying to take cover.
I mean, it's a strategy
strategy
RPG.
And you're trying to take cover and stuff, but you're in the cyber and you have different types of attacks, right? I swear you only did it like 5 times in the whole game.
I don't even remember, honestly.
Have you played
the game.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure you bought it for me, actually, John. I think you
possible.
did. I think it was for like a birthday or something when you're like, this looks interesting, and just like I had it on my wish list or something.
Oh yeah.
And you just got it.
Wish list buying for people is so dangerous now, because you buy something for someone and they already have it somewhere else, or because people leave stuff on their wish list forever. I actually try to go through my wish list every now and then and get rid of stuff. Like, I even
sometimes
really
they're just things that I put on there that I was generally interested in at the time, and I didn't want to forget what it was, but later on you might be like, I don't really even want this, never mind.
But that's how I buy everyone's presents. But anyway, Shadowrun Returns, it was good. Ended very quickly. It made me, I guess, excited. I hear Dragonfall is kind of more of the same, but the Hong Kong game is supposed to be pretty good and even more of an upgrade, so I'm interested to play that one later on down the line. I guess what I'm trying to say is, even though the game was good, I don't probably think it's as good as everyone thinks it is. I still gave it 4 stars, but it's just
same.
kind of a good game in the end.
And for me, I found it like I don't play strategy RPGs. The only other ones I've played are like the Shining Force games, which is like really old, like way the hell back there.
Right.
So I expected this game to be difficult for me because it's just strategy RPGs don't interest me normally. And it was a really easy game. Like I think I put in my comments, I was like, I spent all my skill points and stuff pretty haphazardly and came out perfectly fine.
Right. And granted, there are multiple difficulty options. I think there's easy, normal, and then there's two harder difficulties. I'm sure me and you played on normal, so I
Yeah.
guess you could make it harder for yourself. But do I want to? Not really.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I did, like I said, I picked a decker to be hacking, put all my skills into it, but man, you never use the decking. So I didn't get to use cool things like there's a class that can use drones to attack people. There's classes that use magic, and all those people seem
Yeah.
really cool. I was just a guy with a pistol who sometimes went into cyberspace, and it's just like, oh, what a waste. So that probably brought it down too. Next time I play one of these games, I will not be a decker. Which, of
Yeah.
course, next time they'll probably have something cool with decking, but I'll just remember to bring a decker with me instead of being a decker. But that's Shadowrun Returns, number 3 for me. We're all tied up. Approaching the end of January here.
Yeah. And on the it looks like on the last day of January we both beat a game.
Mm-hmm.
I bought actually because I didn't already own this game. I bought Emily the Strangeress on the DS. This is a really random game to want to go out of your way to buy because I definitely did. I watched this game for a little while on eBay. It's just a game that I had seen once in a store, and I looked at it and I was like, "This looks like a point-and-click adventure game."
Was it a point-and-click adventure game?
Not exactly. I really didn't know a lot of information about this game. I just knew I was intrigued, and I had to satisfy that curiosity. As it turns out, this is a Professor Layton clone.
Oh,
like entirely.
I guess that's good.
As a matter of fact, yeah. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure a couple of the puzzles were lifted directly from Professor Layton. I don't think they have like the rights to all of their puzzles or anything, because I'm sure some of them are just a generic type of puzzle.
Sure.
But like, I was like, some of these things seem really familiar.
But was it
like some
good,
of these puzzles
though?
seem like it was a good game. It wasn't like great. It was like slightly like Diet Professor Layton. It was really confusing because they didn't really have like a sound cue for when you like activate a puzzle, like when you click on something in the environment and it's a puzzle, which was very weird for me at first because I clicked on something and then this like screen just comes up with no sound, with just some random like text for what the name of the puzzle is, and I was like, what the fuck is this? And then it just goes into the puzzle, and it just goes into the puzzle, and I was like, this is like Professor Layton? What?
Just throws it at you. Here's the puzzle. Whatever. Do it.
Yeah, pretty much. And the puzzle range was very odd. Like, I mean, Professor Layton usually has like puzzles that are obviously easier and usually ramp up in difficulty as the game goes along.
Mm-hmm.
This game was kind of all over the place. Some of them, like, arguably really weren't even puzzles. Like, at one point they asked me, like, what, like, which one of these objects I needed to light something, and I was like, the matches, the only thing that lights things in this whole grouping. Like that other things, it's like, here's a pillow, here's a set of keys, here's some matches. Which one of these things can you use to light your way? And I was like, oh fuck if I know.
I imagine you're looking at that at first and you're like, I bet this is a trick question. I'm gonna pick the matches and it's gonna say they're wet.
Because Professor Layton does that. It does like trick questions like that. So I thought maybe this game was like doing the same thing.
Wow, what a strangerous game.
And also, Emily the Strange apparently is literally like some kind of store mascot, kind of. I don't remember for what store.
In Japan.
But this whole game existing is very strange.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's got strange twice in the title, so I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. But basically, you play as Emily. Someone has stolen your cats. You have 3 cats, which have very like metal names. Like one of your cats' names is Sabbath, so
okay.
You're quite a little edgy emo kid, and you have to get your cats back. And each of your cats is like a special power. So each time you gain one of them, it opens up new types of kind of puzzles for you to do, which is cool.
Yeah,
it's a cool concept. It's just some of the puzzles really were like overly difficult, and a lot of them were like not even puzzles. It was really confusing.
I got you.
But
they said, hey, make a bunch of puzzles, and they threw them together at random and said, hey,
kind of, yeah. It wasn't like it wasn't bad. It was a good game. I'm definitely glad I got to play it, and it definitely fueled me for the next game I end up finishing, but I
Oh
guess we'll
yeah,
get to that.
yeah, we will. So me as well. End of January here. This is a game you bought me actually.
Yes, for Christmas.
Right. I had a big list for games was gonna get myself for Christmas basically, and Mom was trying to get some for me, but I kept buying them before she could get them for me. So I made a little designated spot where I was like, I'm not gonna buy any of these, and she ended up buying them all for me, which was awesome. Thank you, Mom. But there was one or two games on there I didn't buy, and one of them, and I should have bought it because it went down cheap enough. I was just an idiot and was like, oh, I can wait a little longer. Was SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated. So I've never played the original version of this outside of a brief little moment at a buddy's house growing up. And I remember that moment being like one of those moments where it clicked with me like, this is a good game. This is a good game. But I didn't play much more of it. So I got this just on a whim because I was like, oh, I like SpongeBob. There's not enough platformers in the world today. Everyone seems to like this one.
Yeah.
It's definitely a B grade platformer, you know, that has SpongeBob on top of it. It's got a lot of cool references, but at the end of the day, and at the end of the day, it's still just a B grade platformer. Collect random things with no purpose. A lot of jokes about, haha, we're a platformer, get it? Those just get a little old for me because I like platformers. Quit disparaging what we're doing here. I understand they're golden spatulas that have no purpose, but come on. And the game, this is a remaster, or it's a remake basically of the original. It kind of looks like anytime you go on YouTube and you look up Zelda in Unreal 4, and you look at those games where these people make like Mario in Unreal,
Yeah.
and you look at it and you're like, yeah, that looks like some weird generic ass. Yeah, I mean that the Mario looks clean, but he's in some generic grass, right? And it all
Yeah.
looks kind of bland. That's what this looks like to me. The original game actually had some style to it, and this one kind of just looks a little generic-y to me.
Yeah, I can kind of see where that might happen.
Yeah, I think a little bit of the charm was lost in translation.
It's kind of
Not
what I think is going to happen to Psychonauts too, actually.
so did I when I first saw the first trailer for it, but when I saw the second and third trailer, I was convinced they knew what they were doing. So we'll see. You know, Double
Yeah.
Fine, who knows? They're all over the place.
Who knows if that game's even going to come out this year? We'll see.
With the Microsoft money, it'll come out when they're ready.
I think they said something about how they were doing the credits of the game. So, but I'm like, but you have not posted a release date anywhere.
Yeah, that's a
So,
great point. I'm not sure. I guess they'll probably wait for whatever happens in the summer at E3 or not E3, whatever they call it.
yeah.
But anyway, SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom. I think I beat it in 3 days, maybe. I was going for completion, but some of the last ones were like collect a million. What they are is basically Mario coins, you know, not the blue coins, not the red coins, the coins.
Yeah.
And it was like collect thousands of these and trade them into Mr. Krabs, and I was just like, I'm just not gonna do that. That's just really boring, and me just going through the same things over and over again, and it just wasn't worth it. I looked up, you do get a slightly different ending. I looked up and I was like, oh, I'm glad I didn't waste my time. Also, the game is glitchy, like a
Oh, really?
total
That's a shame.
total mess. I mean, nothing game breaking, but there were definitely times where I just glitched into rocks, glitched into walls, characters disappeared.
That pretty much turned me off from buying it physically right there, because that's what I got, John, was a physical copy.
Yeah. So, golly, it's a little bit. Again, it doesn't ruin the game, but it does exist. So I had to knock off points for that. But you know, a platformer. It's always good to play a little platformer, and it didn't take too long. And the worlds were big enough but small enough. I think some platformers struggle with that. Like either their worlds are these linear hallways or these giant, oversized ukulele trash. where there's just giant open spaces that we're walking in between MacGuffins
For no reason, just to waste
for no
time.
reason, just to waste time. Say we got big levels. This was a nice balance. So that's my fourth game, and that's ending January for us.
All right. And then very shortly after that, a couple days, we also beat another game on the same day as each other. But
Oh yeah,
I'll
we
go
did.
ahead and go first. I after coming off Emily the Strange, I was like, man, I am just really in a puzzle mood right now. Like, you know what? I was like, I'm gonna pick back up Professor Layton and the Miracle Mask because I started this game several years ago and got about 10 hours in, and then for some reason just stopped playing. And I was like, well, I really don't want to start over, but I also want to remember what's happening. So thankfully they have like Layton does like journal entries and stuff as the
Mm.
story goes along. So I reread through all that stuff and I was like, all right, I'm going to see, if I can get going. Because the problem is, once again, they start off with easier puzzles and then usually get harder as it goes along. So if you're already like over halfway through the game, the puzzles are just going to start off
Oh
hard
yeah,
immediately.
you might be like,
Um,
ah, screw it, I can't do it right now.
yeah, because the first couple puzzles I had a hard time with it. I was just like, I was like, I don't know if I want to do this right now. I already feel like a failure because I can't figure out the puzzles. And then I kind of let myself just ease into it a little bit more, and I just burned right through it. I mean, I think I spent, what was it, like close to 20 hours on this game. So I played basically another probably like 8 hours to finish it up. And I was pretty proud of myself for actually coming back to this game and not restarting it and just picking up where I left off and being able to really
Mm-hmm.
enjoy it because the story is great. I don't know if this is like one of the more popular Professor Layton games, but I thought it was excellent. Like I shed a tear at the end and everything, and this is coming
Oh,
into the game at the middle and finishing it. So
that's tough to do. It's tough to even get you
mhm.
back in, let alone keep you invested if you're,
Yes.
you
So
know.
I was really happy because I also, one of my goals this year was to go back and basically finish games that I already started or that I've had for a long period of time.
Right.
And this was one of those games, especially because I had spent 10 hours on it already.
Funnily enough, you stopped plenty of games in order to do this.
Yes. I
You can play
stopped
those
playing.
games next year.
No, I'll pick them back up later on this year. Like Sakuna, I stopped 16 hours in because I just got burnt out a little bit. It was
Hmm.
just getting too repetitive, and I was like, I don't want to ruin the game for myself, so I'm just gonna put it away for right now.
I think this
I
is
stopped.
actually the moment too. Either this or a little bit later. You were playing the Long Dark for a
Oh my god,
long
yes!
time, and I was watching it, and
What a waste of my life.
I'm not gonna lie, Michelle. When I saw you start it, I was like, "What is she doing? This game's not even fully released." But I'm not gonna tell her
Oh,
because maybe
I can't believe that.
maybe she has some information I don't know. Maybe it's gonna come out soon. Or the
Well,
last two.
considering it's not on early access on Steam,
Right.
and I feel like I was pretty much lied to.
Yeah.
Like you told me, you basically put this game out like it's finished, and it's not even that good.
Hmm.
Like the first chapter, I was like super digging it, and I was like, yeah, this is pretty nice. I like this. But I did start off on easy, which I shouldn't have done. Like I started off on normal, and then I
Hmm.
fucked myself over, and I was like dying, and I was really confused. And I was like, this game's too hard, and put it on an easy, and then easy was too easy.
Hmm.
And the second chapter just dragged forever, and the third chapter was just dragging forever. And
And
I started the third chapter on normal,
and
and I was just like,
this game's been in development
way too
forever.
long.
So even if you were like, okay, well, I'll just pick up the chapters whenever they come out, that may not even be this year or next year. That's
Oh,
how
I definitely
long.
don't think it'll be. They're taking forever.
Yeah. So
Like, because this
good thing
game's
you
literally
stopped.
gone.
And I swear, the
I'm
moment I told you that, hey, the game's not finished, and you looked it up and you saw that, you stopped the next
Yeah,
moment.
I was like, bump this because I was already not enjoying myself in the third chapter. I'm probably not even gonna pick the game up again when they finish it. Really, the
Fair
main
enough.
story, I just don't think it's worth playing.
Yeah,
Like,
I've actually heard a lot of people like to just do the survival mode.
yes, and now I'm like, man, I kind of wish I had just done that.
Yeah,
Maybe someday I will, but for right now, I don't ever see myself coming back to story mode on that game.
sure.
It was just like large open spaces for you to walk through with nothing to do. As you're like, well, I better find somewhere to make a fire because I'm dying.
I feel I wish I wouldn't have told you, because I feel like the moment I told you, you were like, "Oh, great! Now this 100-hour game or whatever that I'm decided not to play anymore. Now I've freed up my schedule. Perfect. Looks like I won't be playing long games anymore because that is just not my
Because
style."
that's kind of like I kind of was burnt out from playing that for a while. So yeah, that's basically what happened. I stopped playing long games for a little bit.
But anywho, before that, same day you beat Professor Layton and the Miracle Mask, I had started doing my challenge. It was play a genre, play one of your least favorite genres, right? And I was like, well, I know what my least favorite genre is. That's easy. Sports games. Um, and I tried not to cheat because I remember I said sports games, and someone was like, well, Gran Turismo's kind of a sports game. And I was like, I see what you're saying, but I don't know if I would count it. Um, so I've played NBA Street Volume 2, basketball game with a little bit more theatrics. It's 3-on-3 basketball in the street, and you do all these crazy dunks and stuff that don't mean anything because 3-pointers are still worth more points, even though they don't look as cool. There's a mode called Be a Legend mode where you create a character and then you go through the maps and you beat everyone. It's actually funny. You get pro players on your team. I don't know any of them, but except for a few. I knew Michael Jordan, and I didn't even realize I got Michael Jordan on my team because it was just some bad player. This is this weird time where Michael Jordan came back to basketball from retirement and like was shit. So all his stats in the game aren't like he's a legend. It was like, no, he's just shit at this time. So like he has good stats, but they're kind of whatever. And then by the end, I think I got Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal. But anyway, the game is good. It's fun, repetitive, because it's just the same basketball. You play it the same way every time. Blocks are very strong in basketball. Michelle, I know me and you don't watch basketball, but
We don't watch any sports really.
right. But I know that if someone shoots a ball and the ball is in a downward trajectory towards the basket and you jump up and knock it away, that's illegal. That's called goaltending. Goaltending is not a thing on the street, okay? So you can goaltend every day. And that's what I would do. I would go, they'd be doing their little tricks and their dribble stuff. I would go stand by the goal. They would shoot. I would jump up in the air, snatch the ball away from them, and then run back to the other side and shoot a 3-pointer over and over and over again. So it was very repetitive. And you could use the points you get from your match to level up your character, but also your character's appearance was factored into these same points. So you could use it for your appearance or you could use it for stats. So I used it for stats because why would I use it for appearance?
Yeah.
Which sucks because my character looked lame, but every time I thought about changing him, I was like, well, I mean, I could also get better 3-pointers or better dunks.
But it's like, was the game also hard enough for you to even have to worry about that?
It was not, but I didn't realize that at the time. Going back through, I maybe go ahead and change how I played.
That's probably why they gave you the appearance as an option too. They were like, oh, they're going to get overpowered really fast. What else can we make them spend these points on, you guys?
But who knows? And there was also, I guess, it gave you the ability to grind. You could replay matches over and over again, grind up sets. And there is a harder difficulty, so maybe if you're playing on the harder difficulty, it would be a thing you would do, grind up stats, and maybe use your extra points for more appearance buffs. But I didn't have to do it. I played on normal. I beat every match, I think, the first try. No problem. It's a basketball game.
Seems like the kind of game that would have been fun to play growing up with just like a couple friends.
Exactly. It would have been better 2-player, but single player mode, no, it was okay. It was okay. That's it.
And while John was playing, oh no, I started this game I think probably a day or two. Actually, I started this game around Christmas and then I stopped playing it because I had too much stuff. Because it's a game that Mom got me for Christmas. It's a fan translated version of the Nameless game because this game only came out in Japan. So I guess this is kind of like a repro cart. And I'm kind of glad that I didn't spend my money on it.
How much did it cost?
$30.
Okay.
This is not
Not
super
too bad,
cheap at all.
but
It's also only about 4 hours long. So I didn't know that going into it. Once again, it's like and it was also kind of just misled by what I did know about the game. Because I heard it was a horror game, but you also played parts of the game that were like this 8-bit Dragon Quest RPG, and I was like, oh, this sounds fucking weird. I gotta have this. It's kind of not like what you would think. It's actually a lot more generic feeling than that. Like
it sounded cool.
You go through these kind of linear areas, and kind of just avoid ghosts. The thing that sucks is you can't save at any point in these levels. Like if you die, you restart the level.
Oh.
It's kind of like they're hoping that you'll learn where some of them are, even though they're assholes occasionally, and put them off screen, like to the right. So you come out of a door and you can't see anything to your right. So if you turn to the right, you're just going to die immediately.
Oh.
So you have to already know ahead of time to turn left and start walking immediately.
Extending that game length for you, the short game
length.
Yeah.
This is one of the only other DS games that I have that you hold the DS like a book, which is actually pretty cool. I kind of like that
cool.
feature.
That is cool.
Except for when you the thing is, the game is cursed. You have like a game, the little RPG game that you play, it's cursed, and people are dying because they played this game. Kind of like, The Ring with the videotape and all that crap.
Right.
It really, like, this is like a kind of a cliched story, really.
Mm-hmm.
But as you're going throughout, you can use the RPG screen. It's like default screen when they don't let you play it is just like a cliffside with a bench. And if the picture is becoming distorted, that means there's a ghost in the room that you can't see yet. So you might want to like watch your back. But you'll kind of go through the level, and the story thing will happen, and the game will like react. And you're like, oh, and you pull up your twin screen, as they call it in the game. You pull up your twin screen or your DS in the game, right. And which you have to. It's not in book form. When you're playing the RPG, you have to turn the DS again, which is weird.
That's annoying.
Yeah, it is kind of annoying. But the RPG sections, there's no like actual RPG gameplay. You don't go level up and stuff. It literally is just like little areas, like hub areas that look like Dragon Quest kind of, or Dragon Warrior.
It's a fake RPG.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And you'll have some little thing that you have to do in the game. It's really weird because it has like these glitchy effects happening the whole time because like it's cursed and whatever, and it's kind of annoying, honestly, visually. I was like a little confused. I was like, was this repo card have like an issue? Is this supposed to be like this?
But no, that's just how it is, huh?
Yeah, and there'll be like one little goal per each section that will kind of enlighten you on some of the story. And usually the RPG sections are very short, like 10 minutes or less.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll kind of continue in the real world going on throughout the rest of the level or whatever until you reach whatever the end goal is.
I just want to take this moment to apologize because I do like to find footage for all these games, and I already know I'm not going to be able to find good footage of this game because
you might be able to, actually. I think I found a little bit of footage of it.
If I do find footage of it, it's going to be difficult to translate the experience of a DS, right?
Yeah.
Flipping the DS on its left side.
Yeah, that's
I
really
tried
weird.
my best, everyone. Hopefully it got the point across.
But I liked the 3D levels. Like, I really liked the look of them. It had this weird, it really reminded me of like almost a PlayStation 1 look that I actually really enjoyed for some reason.
We're nostalgic for it.
And when I followed this game with a guide, because there are guides for this readily available, actually, which is very nice. I started following it with a guide when I realized that I was going to have to restart levels because it just like stressed me out and gave me anxiety about going through the level because I was like, what if there's a ghost in here? What if it... And like, I understand that's kind of part of the draw is it makes it scary because like if you die, you have to restart. So there's like real consequences. But it just doesn't make the game fun to play. Like once I died twice on one level, I was like, forget it. I'm going to go in with a guide and I'm just going to like zoom through. The game does have really great ambiance as well. Like there are things that will happen around you that can't hurt you because you kind of realize as you play the game that literally the only thing that can hurt you are the actual physical ghosts that you can see. So any noises that are happening around you or like any other spooky things are just there for ambiance. But even then, it still like would put me on edge. I was going through like a shopping center, and there are those like metal, those pull down metal, what are they called?
Shutters.
Shutters, yeah. And from the other side of the shutter, like a face and hands slammed into it when I walked past it and scared the shit out of me. Like, and I was just like, oh god, oh god, oh god, I gotta go faster, I gotta run. Things are happening. So I really like the ambiance of it. I just think for like what I had to pay for it to have it wasn't, well, I didn't pay, technically mom did. Isn't worth the money at all. Like if you want that curious, just emulate it. And there's a second game, but I don't know if I'll get it because once again it's still like $30. It's very interesting though. It's worth playing, and it's kind of one of those weird games that you don't see do something like that very often. It's just, it was a basic concept. It didn't go into anything like really in depth or detailed with what it did. It was kind of like, we have these two gimmicks and we're just going to go with that the whole time.
It took a little bit of a risk, and that is to be appreciated at the very least.
Yeah. And that's what I like about games that are like on like the PlayStation 2 and the DS and stuff. There's just a lot of weird stuff to pick from and a lot of interesting games to pick from on those consoles.
And even if they're not good, they're at least different. It's not like when you play, I don't know, Just Cause or something, and you're like, yeah, that was pretty middle of the road, and did nothing special. So,
whereas this game, I would definitely put it. I gave it 3 stars, but it was definitely enjoyable, and I would still play it again, especially now that I know what to do for the most part. Because, like I said, some things I just didn't know going into it, and that made it annoying to play at first. But now that I know how the game works, I think it'd be really great to go through a second time.
Yeah. So right here after this game, there's a gap, right?
Yeah, I'm just like, why was there such a huge gap?
I'm pretty sure this is the Long Dark gap. This is actually when you were playing Long Dark, and then I told you it wasn't actually finished, and you quit. Pretty sure this is the gap.
Probably, because it goes from the 7th to the 21st, which is ridiculous.
Which is funny because in that big gap, I also hadn't beaten a game, so you would beat the next game.
Yeah, I played another short game, another spooky game, which is kind of odd. I played the season 2 of The Last Door, which I finished the first season last year.
I remember you saying you were looking forward to the second season, and here we are.
Yes, and the second season was great. I still don't put it above the first season, and I think it's mostly just because the first season was just, everything was new, you know, and whereas this one, it's literally a continuation of the story, so it's kind of like, it's the exact same, it's just like one half of a whole, you know?
Gotcha.
It ended really well. I liked all of the locations and just how the story kind of played out with the, it's like an organization, what am I thinking of?
The New World Order, D-Generation X, the government.
Yes, all of those are correct.
Okay, great.
Thanks for the help.
No problem.
Like the people who like to wear the masks and inject that stuff into them.
Are you talking about us, the people during the COVID pandemic? We wear masks and hopefully are injecting stuff at some point. Oh God!
It's like a organization in the game though that likes to.
I didn't play it yet.
You should though. They're great.
I have the first one somewhere. So
there were a couple annoying puzzles in the second game. Like there was a fucking like walk through the woods and hope and pick the right pathways, or else you're going to be walking through the woods forever. And it was not like in a normal way where like you have like you can go left, right, up, or down, because this game is like a side-scrolling, you know, point-and-click adventure game kind of thing. So I just used a guide for that part because I was like, I already know better. I already know I'm going to hate this puzzle.
Sometimes I don't want to do it. We don't have time for it. We don't have time for that crap.
Yeah, like all the rest of the puzzles in the game were pretty good. This one was just like, no, thank you. It's like I don't know why people do maze puzzles in games. They're not a good idea unless it's like a more easy kind of maze or a very short puzzle. This is not a short puzzle.
Maybe like a maze that doesn't have an answer, and eventually it'll just let you out on its own. Those are acceptable,
Yeah,
but
because where this is side scrolling, it's like you can kind of mouse over the background and just sort of pick which part to go down.
mhm.
So it wasn't like you had these really defined, like, places to go. You kind of had to feel your way through. And I think it was like there was like markings on the tree, or the trees were a certain way, and that's kind of how you knew where to go based on like some clues you were given. And I was just like, this, no.
When I think about mazes and point and clicks, I always immediately think about Monkey Island, which
Oh yeah.
had the maze, and I believe you end up following someone through to get through. But you could just click your way through and find all kinds of things. So
Hmm.
maybe it was some type of reference to that, but weird.
I doubt it. I feel like a lot of, well, not a lot, but there have been other point and click games. Actually, there's another one literally in this list
Oh,
of what I've
okay.
beaten so far this year that
That
does
has
the
a little
same thing.
maze.
Yep. Where it's like, you better pick the right choices or else you're just going to be lost. And I was like, oh my God.
That's
Here we
funny.
go.
Is there a season 3 coming? You think, or is it
No,
done?
no. It was definitely done with season two. And I
That's
believe
good though.
this game's pretty old as well at this
I'm
point.
I'm happy when games end and stories end.
Yes.
Same thing with TV shows and movies. I like it. I like closure. Let it end. So many things want to just go on forever, and they really shouldn't.
Yeah. Ace Attorney.
Um, I appreciate finality to things. It's actually funny though. A lot of things have finality, and then they keep going. I recently watched through the Alien movies, and I swear every other one is like, "This is the end," and it's like, and then there's another one, and then the third movie, they kill off the main character, and you're like, "Well, that's the end." They can't bring
Let
her
it
back
go.
if she's dead.
Uh
Wrong. They can bring her back. The next movie's Alien Resurrection.
huh.
As soon as I saw the title, I was like, "Oh shit, duh." They're just gonna resurrect her with magic.
Oh my gosh, I saw that coming.
So during this time, actually, basically, I think since I beat SpongeBob, I started Yakuza Kiwami 2. I knew I wanted to start a Yakuza game early because for Christmas I got myself the remastered trilogy, remastered collection, which has Yakuza 3, 4, and 5 on it. As you can see, this is not any of those games, so I bought a bunch of games way ahead of time that I didn't even need, which is a little annoying because they also got released on PC. I could have bought them on PC where I had the other games,
Yeah.
but at the time I didn't know, and I was like kind of getting iffy. Like, well, what if this runs out of stock? Who knows? Some weird collection. So,
Yeah.
so I got the collection, but before I could even play the collection, I needed to play Kiwami 2, which is actually the latest game in the series, besides Like a Dragon, which just came out. The latest game in the series to that point. So it's the newest one I'll play for a long time. Um, and it is Yakuza. It is very long, lots of sub stories. I didn't
And
spend
what's
this.
weird is I looked up the length of these games, and it always says they're like 16 hours or something, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure John put in like 80.
I did not put in 80. So I put in with Yakuza 0, I put in 70 hours. But I did every single side story, every single side mini game, except for like the secret final bosses. Um, with Kiwami 1, I put in, let's say, 30, and with Kiwami 2, I
Mhm.
put in 30 as well. I think 30 is about my standard.
Yeah.
I basically, the way I play is I do the main story, and I also do every single side quest I can see, unless it's just too hard. There was a stupid Mahjong quest in this one, and I was like, I don't know how to fucking play Mahjong. I really try. I even Googled it. I looked it up a million times, and I was like, I just don't understand. It starts you at a deficit, and I was like, I can't play this. I can't win it. But every other side quest that I see, I go to do. I think by the end of Kiwami 2 ended up being 70 or 80 side quests. So quite a lot. And it's because like every time you do anything in the main story, you look at your map and you're like, yep, there's about 10 more side quests. Okay, I guess I'll go do those. And they're always great. They're always entertaining. I think Kiwami 2, so the order I played it in is Kiwami 1, then I went back and played 0, and then I played Kiwami 2. That's not the order you should play them in. You start with 0, then go 1, then 2. But that's not how it worked out. Kiwami 2 was a step back from 0 because it still had to work within the trappings of Yakuza 2, the PS2 game. it's a remake of that game, so it's still going to follow the
Oh.
same story. So it has to work within the PS2 trappings. Some characters exist and they have the voice acting and the graphical talents that make them really stand out, but their storylines are very simple and sometimes rushed and don't exactly make sense, you know?
Hmm.
There's one character that like their motivations become clear within like 5 seconds and you're like, okay, I guess whatever, dude, and you kill them or whatever, kick their ass, whatever. But I still think it's a very good game, probably better than the first Kiwami. Not as good as Zero, but it is still Yakuza, and it's very enjoyable in that sense. And I'm glad I got it out of the way early on because my goal for this year is actually to. I'll talk about goals later, but basically, I want to get to that remaster collection. So that was
Yeah,
number.
actually, you playing these games really does make me want to play them. It sounds
They're
I
so
always knew about
good,
the Yakuza series, but obviously they didn't really have a lot of them out here until like honestly like the past couple console generations, and that's
right? And
it
in
when
fact,
they
just this past console generation, really,
yeah.
because so many of them were overseas or not getting popular releases,
And then I
and
think I think there's just a whenever what did they release? Was it Zero first here or was it Kiwami?
Zero.
Yeah, I think they just hit it off so well with that they were like, maybe there's a market for this here now.
It's actually kind of weird because it going through it all, I can clearly see that they loved Yakuza and they wanted Yakuza to be big from the beginning. And because Sega is a Japanese company and Yakuza is huge in Japan, that their mindset is always this is a big series. This is a big series. We just got to get the West latched onto it.
Hmm.
So they're always going to be behind it, at least for Japan. Um, and as you go through, you see Yakuza 1 and 2 happened, right, using the same engine. But Yakuza 3 used a really like new engine, and there was like a huge push to make it a big series, and it didn't quite work out. But then like Yakuza 5 is another like huge push transition where it changes everything and
Hmm.
is like way expanded. I haven't played it yet, but it's got like 5 characters or something you can play as in 5 locations, and it's massive. You could tell they were clearly pushing, and then they were like, okay, well, what are we gonna do? This isn't working out. We're gonna make 6 and 0. We're gonna make 6 to finish the story, and 0 is like the perfect. To me, they were like, we need to bring people in, so they made 0 for the starting point, and they gave closure for the
Hmm.
people who've been there all along. So now we can play 0, right, like I did, and we can actually, because the remastered collection is out, we can play all of them, and and to me that's perfect, especially with Like a Dragon out now,
Hmm.
because now they're all available on PS4. I think all of them might be on Game Pass as well, so they're out there for
Yeah, I definitely.
for us to get
I
to.
had already looked up the cost of like the remaster collection. I feel like that's something that's going to get expensive later on.
I was worried
I
about it,
mean,
but it is on PC now, so there's not too much of a worry. It'll always be there.
yeah, but some games I do just want to have like physically, and I feel like that would be a nice one to have.
Yeah, and it is nice
Not all
because
games,
it
but
on PS4 it does run 60 frames per second. Yakuza Kiwami and Zero, and I think Kiwami 2. I'm pretty sure they only run 30 on PS4.
I
But
don't
on
really care about that kind of stuff anyway. Thankfully.
I don't. But man, Yakuza 0 looks pretty magical on PC. Like the cutscenes run at 60 frames. Like the cutscenes in the game, I don't know how they did it, but whatever they did, they made the cutscenes run at a better frame rate too. And it was just like disgusting how good it looked, and it kind of like left this cool impression on me. I was like, I really want it to look like this moving forward. So when I finally get back to 6, I'll buy it again on PC. Because I actually heard that game actually runs quite poor on the PS4. I could be wrong, but
uh,
um, it'll obviously run
Actually,
good on PC.
if they had it somewhere else other than Steam, I think I would be more inclined to want to get them because I'm just so big in that whole like trying to, for one, give developers more money because I know Steam takes such a decent cut of everything.
Mm-hmm.
But just that whole DRM free thing as well. Like if I buy something on GOG and my husband wants to play it, I can just be like, here you go. This is it on a flash drive. You're welcome.
Oh, yeah. I guess I was about to say you could buy it on like the Windows Store or Game Pass, but that's
Not that we can't
all of
share
them.
Steam accounts.
All of them have DRM.
Not that we can't do the family sharing thing through Steam, but he also occasionally uses Linux. And I found out that if he switches over to Linux, sometimes it just screws everything up and Steam doesn't understand what's happening anymore and it unshares his games with me.
Yeah. The whole game
really
sharing thing, honestly, is, for me, it's always more hassle than it's worth. I've had so many people that are like, yo, let me share my games with you. You don't even have to buy it. I'm like, no, just buy it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I don't want any of the trouble that comes with sharing games. I know someone out there is like, oh, it's so easy, but it's actually just annoying to me, so I don't do it.
Yeah, because you have to physically log into your account on their computer, and it's just like,
Yeah, I'm okay. So, Yakuza Kiwami 2 took me about 30 hours. And then I was done, and I was free to play any short game I wanted, but you would beat a couple games before I got a chance to.
Yeah, and I don't think your next game is short anyway, so...
We'll find that out the hard way.
Now, since I wanted to go back and beat games that I've already either had for a long time or just had started and not finished, I decided I wanted to get the last few Daedalic games off my fucking backlog that I bought. The ones that I bought in a bundle like 6 or 7 years ago, that I just hadn't finished.
What's funny you mentioned that. On Humble Bundle right now is the same bundle. It's like every Daedalic game. It's like their 15th. It's like their 15th anniversary bundle. And I was looking, I was like, nah, I think I'll pass.
Yeah, like you really just got to pick and choose your games, and from Daedalic. And the next game I played from them was the Dark Eye Chains of Satnav, which Satnav is not an easy name to say. It's like a dark fantasy. I want to say it's inspired by an actual, like, not folktale, but kind of like an actual story. I just don't know what it is. I don't know anything about it.
Oh, the story of the Dark Eye. We all know it, Come on.
With the fairy and like the medieval times and all that stuff, yeah.
Could be anything. I don't know. Could be any Disney movie.
Pretty much. You play as this guy and nobody likes you because you're like your family's trappers, I guess. They call you a chicken chaser, and nobody likes you. And you're trying to. What are you trying to do in this game? Me trying to remember the story.
Did you like this game? Sounds like you didn't like this game.
I thought it was good, actually. I was kind of surprised, but at the same time, it's a Daedalic game. Like, there's all these cut corners. Like, the animation's kind of weird because, like, they don't actually animate the characters. It's like they have, like, 5 still frames for, like, each direction they're turned, and they just kind of, like... Whoosh.
I see. Gotcha.
They just gotta flip between them. Like when you turn your character, you're really just flipping to this one other still of them. It's not like an active animation where they like their whole body turns. It's like that kind of cut corners. Like they had somebody to paint everything like digitally, but they didn't really have anybody to animate anything.
Right. It's
some of the digital painting looks
budget game, I'm sure.
Yeah, some of the digital painting looks great. Actually, it looks really, really good. I also have effects that you can turn on in the game, which I didn't even realize they were turned off to begin with. I was kind of confused. I was like, "Why?" I went in to turn on subtitles, and then I turned on the effects, and the frame rate just went like, it just died. It went into single digits, and I was like, you know what? I don't need to see the rain. It's okay. I'll just know it's there.
And what's weird, that's definitely not your computer problem. That's that game's problem.
It's definitely that game's problem because I was just like, oh, this is rough. And I tried to play with like just low effects because you can choose, I guess, how many effects you want on the screen or how intense you want them to be. And I tried putting it with low, and I just wasn't having it. I was like, it's either going to be the frame rate's going to be perfect all the time, or I don't want to deal with this. So just forget it.
Funnily enough, just a few moments ago, as you mentioned, you don't care about the frame rate. But I guess we do care about the frame rate now. When it gets bad enough, huh?
When it interferes with me being able to walk my character to the other side of the screen, yes. when I can't even do the pointing and clicking, which is all this game, has going for it,
Right.
it's a concern.
So as far
Uh,
as Daedalic point and clicks, where does this one rank? Is it in the middle? Is it towards
it's
the
pretty in the
bottom?
middle. It's not towards the bottom because the bottom for me is kind of, I hate to say it, it's kind of Deponia, even though
Oh
Deponia
wow.
actually is a well animated game. Just nothing ever happened in the story. I
Sure.
think it's towards the middle because I did remember kind of enjoying the characters in the story. It's mostly you and this fairy girl that you meet, and you kind of end up trying to save your land from Satnav, who is like this keeper of time. He's like this almighty ruler, keeper of time, where things aren't considered to have happened unless he's written them.
Hmm.
So even if you did something, unless Satnav's blessings on it, basically it hasn't really happened yet. And that's kind of the premise of this story. It's kind of trippy and weird how they use that to their advantage and what's happening. Like towards the end of the game, it's like something. Well, this is more in the second game. Something happens and everybody's really sad and they're like, oh no, and then they're like, but wait, if Satnav doesn't know that it happens, he won't write it and it won't be true. Like that kind of thing.
I noticed you just said in the second game. Is there a second game?
There actually is.
And you
Memoria, the game that
Oh,
has no name relation whatsoever,
I see.
is the second
That's
game.
why it was confusing. We'll get there in a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, but you kind of end up saving the world, and
Of course you do. Daedalic.
but with some downfalls. The fairy girl that was helping you kind of had to give things up, and now she's in a state where she's like been turned into like a crow,
Hmm.
and we'll get into that later on in the second game.
This game actually, like the way you describe it, sounds kind of interesting. At least the premise is moderately
Yeah,
interesting.
it's very based on like dark fantasy tales. I think,
I guess that's why you
which is
said
kind
it
of
sounds like it's based on something else because Daedalic
yeah,
probably didn't write that.
yeah. I'm sure they did.
I'll do respect to Daedalic. They make okay games.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised. It's not bad. Dark fantasy stuff's not really necessarily my thing, but I did like this game. I didn't like hate playing it or anything. I think there was
Hmm.
a few areas of puzzles in the game that were kind of bad towards the end. Actually, the puzzles get bad towards the end. They become a lot more nonsensical, and I was just like, like this is a real stretch. I don't know how I would have figured this out on my own.
Sure.
So towards the end of the game, a lot more guide usage. The beginning of the game, I didn't really have to do any of that.
The pitfalls of a
So
lot of point and clicks, unfortunately. Especially once you
yeah,
start looking at that guy one time,
yeah.
it's hard to put it
And
down.
the puzzles just got really obtuse towards the end of the game. So, oh, it looks like I actually played the next game
You
too,
did. Number 9.
which was another. This one was a very short game. It's the shortest game I played this year so far. It was only an hour. I really didn't know that going into it. There was another game on itch.io that I wanted to play that was based off of or inspired by this game, and there may actually be a lot of people who have heard of this, but I had heard of it before, but I just never really looked into it. It's called Space Funeral. It's an RPG Maker 2003 game that's very weird. Like whoever made this probably does drugs.
Oh.
It's just kind of the first area that you start in the game. For one, the whole thing kind of looks like it's made with MS Paint, very intentionally made with
Hmm.
MS Paint, but like it's got a style going for it. The first area you start off in like has this like 70s Japanese like rock music playing, and it's so weird, but it's really cool, and you're like, what is this? It's a strange game. And I don't 100% know the story exactly. You're kind of going to save the world, but then there's this twist at the end. I think things are. It's like you can either choose to live in the world as it is or save it and see what the world is really like, kind of a deal.
Hmm.
It was a very cool game. There's actually several other games apparently in the series that are made by different people.
That's a weird thing to do.
Yeah, because I looked up and I was like, yep, the second game, and it's So it's like they're kind of fan games, but they're not at the same time. They're, I guess, we're blessed by the creator, and he was just like, "Yeah, I don't care. Yeah, this can
I,
be Space Funeral too."
it's actually kind of funny. We're saying that that's a weird thing, but that's how all video games are made, except for the small indie ones.
Yeah. That's true.
Like I guess and I'm trying to think of a big game right now. I guess why can I not think of it? Like Last of Us isn't made by the same people as Last of Us One. I mean, yes, the same
Yeah,
company, but it's not the same director probably. So
yeah. But it was a pretty cool game. It was like a action.
free,
What is it?
free,
Yes,
free.
yes. You should totally download it at some point, especially if you need to like pad out your games or anything this year.
Right.
Because apparently it's only an hour. I didn't even know that when I started or anything. I just was like, yeah, I'll play this so I can play this other game from itch.io,
Might have to end up
which I
playing
can't.
it just to get footage for the video for the
Because I
podcast.
mean, it's certainly short enough.
Sure.
What is I wish I could remember the name of the other. Seek Magician is the game that I actually wanted to play, and people were like, and he's like, I base this off of Space Funeral, especially stylistically, like that whole kind of intentional MS Paint things are kind of weird and wonky and strange look.
And I noticed you haven't played Seek Magician yet this year.
No, I forgot about it.
Ah, I
I
guess it'll
forgot
come.
about it until
It'll
just
come
now.
later on, huh?
Yeah, and along with the other Space Funeral games at some point as well, just out of curiosity for those. Um, yeah, I mean, if anybody's interested in it, it's free. Just look up where to find it, and you'll get it.
Right. So while I actually started playing something else, even while I was playing Kiwami 2, Kiwami 2 and this were being played at the same time. I started playing God of War, PS4, the new version, which is just called God of War, because of course that's how things are named these days to make it extra confusing.
I mean, you could be Nintendo and just put new in front of it, like new Pokemon Snap, and
You know, but at least I know.
that's true,
I don't
I
have to
guess.
go. Yeah, it's Doom 2016. Uh, it also changes the name of the original because now it's like God of War 2005. You know the one. Uh, so anyway, so I started playing new God of War. I played the original God of War. Did not play any of the other ones. Just went straight to this one. I figured it seemed like it was acceptable to do that. While playing the game, I realized there were quite a few references to things that happened in previous games. Not like it mattered, but like our characters reflected on things that happened in the past. So it was like, okay, well, it would have been nice, but it doesn't matter. This game was not, and I knew it wasn't like the other God of Wars. I knew it wasn't a character action game. I did not realize that it was a giant ass open world game.
Oh, really?
I mean, it's not open world in the sense of like Skyrim where you just walk in 360 directions, but you get to a point after walking through the first little opening area, which is a couple hours long. You get to this boat, right, and then you can go anywhere. You can go to the main
That's pretty
objective.
freaking cool.
It was cool, and it stays open like that for the whole rest of the game. So there's lots of side stuff in the water. You keep lowering it throughout the game, and it opens up new locations as well within this pretty open area. This was not a small game. I was expecting like this to be like kind of like Last of Us, right? I was like, okay, it'll be 15 hours, and I'll just knock it out. And wrong, it was 35 hours, and it was massive. And I didn't even do a lot of the side stuff. Like I would see it, and I was like, man, I can't be bothered. Especially some of the more optional stuff, like the randomized dungeons and stuff. I was just like, no, I'm good. I'll just beat the game. Very cool game. I really enjoyed the story. It's got the father son thing going on. That's working out good. There's this huge mystery of what's going on in the whole game, which I do enjoy because our protagonist Kratos, he's very kept to himself. If you've played the previous God of Wars, you understand that is Kratos, and he is from the Greek mythology world or whatever, and we are not in the Greek mythology world. So there's some questions, right? Of what's going on, why are we here, who is this child? And those questions get answered by the end of the game, but Kratos doesn't want to answer it because he doesn't want any part of any bullshit going on. He just wants to live his life, right? but they just won't.
Yeah.
The world just won't have it. They just will not let him live his life. So we had to go kick some people's asses. The whole point, the whole thing about the game is the mother has died. We don't meet her. She's died before the game started. We burned her. That's in the opening scene. We got her ashes. We are going to take her ashes to the highest peak and,
Disperse them?
spread the ashes, right? And that's how. That's the only thing you need to do in the game, right? So it sounds pretty simple. There's some danger in the world. You're like, okay, but before you even take off on your adventure, someone needs an ass kicking, and it just starts off a really bad trend of having to kick a lot of people's asses along the way, and trying to teach our child kind of how to be a man. And
How to kick asses.
I mean, I'm not kidding. How to kick lots of asses himself. It's a great game. I think the equipment system is a little underwhelming. I think they tried to make all the equipment valuable in some way. I went for a straight strength build, basically. I didn't want to focus anything really on defense. The best defense is an attack, right? So I focused all into that, and it seemed like I used the same armor for a long period of time. There wasn't a lot of incentive to switch off of it. I think I switched off maybe twice. Like everything else was just like not worth it. And I used the same. You could also swap your special attacks, and I kept the same heavy special attack the entire game. I switched to the other one, say I don't like this, I don't like the way it moves. Went back to the original one. So that's kind of lame in a way. I enjoyed all the side stuff you could do. There's a fast travel system that doesn't really unlock until the very end of the game, so it's difficult to remember everything that you need to go do. Some of it's on the map, some of it isn't. I think it would have been nice to have that open up a little bit sooner. I understand from a story perspective why it doesn't. I did enjoy the game though. I enjoyed it quite a lot, and I'm looking forward to Ragnarok coming this year.
Is that something you're going to buy this year, or you're just going to like wait for it to drop price?
Of course not. I'm price drop.
I was like, also you just got like 10,000 other games you could be playing.
Exactly. So I'll wait for a price drop, of course. And it's probably not coming out this year anyway. I'm sure it'll get delayed just like everything else. We haven't even seen gameplay of it, so I don't expect anything. In fact, the only trailer we saw for it was a teaser of the name. So.
Oh wow.
The end of this
game, probably like a few years away.
Yeah, but they said this year. So.
Huh.
But we'll see. Everything's getting delayed lately. But
the
game did end up with a stinger for the next game, so they already knew where they were going with it. But that game and Kiwami 2 took a substantial amount of time to play through, and I did not play anything else on the side.
I felt like you were playing so many long games while I was kind of playing mostly shorter games right now.
You just went straight into killer mode.
Yeah, I think it just happened because Ace Attorney took so long, and then Professor Layton took quite a while. And I was playing some other games in the meantime too. I still play Animal Crossing all the time. I play New Horizons for way too long. I'll be like, I'll just play 30 minutes, and then 2 hours later, I'm like, what the fuck am I doing with my life?
In fact, it was there was Long Dark, Sakuna, Astroneer, Graveyard Keeper. You played Graveyard Keeper for a little bit. God, you dropped all of those.
Yep. I dropped Graveyard Keeper right off my backlog entirely.
But instead,
at this point,
number 10 into March. You did
yes,
play
and
Memoria.
I'm going to pretend. This is the point where I was like, John told me what the backlog challenge was for this month, which was to beat a sequel. And I was like, I'm already playing a sequel. Yes, perfect. I can actually do this one. And I decided, I was like, you know what? Space Funeral can be my game for the first month. I'm just going to cheat and say that that's what it was.
I'll tell you the challenge. I'll tell you the challenge for next month after the podcast. Don't worry.
All right. So I played Memoria, which is actually the sequel to The Dark Eye. Is that apparent? Is that obvious? No.
Not to me.
Kind of wish they had made it obvious, because I knew that they were related somehow. I didn't know Memoria was literally just a direct continuation of the story, though.
I wonder why they would do that. Why would they? I mean, the Dark Eye Chains of Satanov is not a good name.
Yeah, no,
Memoria is a better name, but come on, you could have
definitely.
called it Memoria, the Dark Eye Saga, or something, you know?
Yeah, something. Just do it the longest journey you did, and just like the longest journey, and then the second game, Dreamfall, the longest journey.
Right, it works.
It works enough anyway. So Memoria, your little fairy kind of girlfriend, this girl that you like anyway, got turned into a crow. So the whole premise of this game is you trying to find somebody who can change her back. And like there's this mage who like I guess he's a mage, maybe a wizard or something, who like wants you to solve this riddle for him, and then he will change her back. And the riddle has to do with something that happened in the past a long time ago. Um, there was like a you play between two characters in this game. You play between the guy, the main character, and then you will go into the past and play through the parts of the past as the female character. And she basically ends up going through this doorway, and there's text in some sort of unknown language above the doorway, and she never verbally says what it is. And the wizard dude wants you to tell him what that text was that she saw above the doorway. It's like a doorway that leads to a treasure.
Mm-hmm.
And these stories become intertwined throughout your own story of trying to save the fairy, and her story eventually like come together after a certain point. And the deal sort of becomes that this woman from the past that's supposed to be long dead, they kind of want you to find a way to bring back, because it falls back into that thing of what Satanov hasn't written down isn't fact yet. So if we can change the story, she can effectively be alive, kind of. It's really weird.
It
was
is a
actually
interesting take on that mechanic, though.
yeah, it was actually a pretty good game. Even just the parts playing as the guy, you technically do end up, I guess, playing as two characters, because you will play as the crow, the fairy crow, at points to have her help you with puzzles and stuff. It's very interesting in this game as well. I will definitely say the puzzles just got like, they were just too much for me. At the end of the game, I was like, okay, I want to be done now. Stop all this puzzle bullshit. Let's go.
Guiding it up, huh?
Yeah, the story was definitely a lot more grandiose in this game. And, you know, I thought at first that I kind of liked the first game better just because it was a little bit more simple. But, you know, in hindsight, I don't think I liked the second game better. I think it was a pretty good game all around. It's not necessarily my cup of tea, just that whole dark fantasy thing.
Right.
But I thought it was pretty good. And I definitely think some people would enjoy it more than what I did. It's, to me, it's one of their better series of games that you could play.
That's good.
Yeah, so I liked it. I want to say I completed it because I think there's like technically two endings you can get, but you can just like save and then make the other choice, you know?
Gotcha. So you got them both basically right away.
Yeah. And it looks like during this time, John just kind of wasn't playing anything or was busy with another game.
Busy playing another game.
Because I kind of ended up on a roll here. And the same day I beat Memoria, and I didn't know this was actually in the same day. I thought it was actually the day afterwards, but I beat a game I've had for quite a long time that Mom bought me.
This is based on when we posted them to Backlog. So
yeah.
Sometimes it's a little off. You might have beat a game the night before and then
that's
not
true.
posted it until the next day. So
yeah,
I try.
This is a game Mom, I had her get me like 4 or 5 years ago for my birthday. I want to say.
What is it called?
Boku no Natsuyasumi 3, which
Great.
almost directly translates into Boku's Summer 3.
Okay.
So this is the third game in a set of games. I think there's only 4 in all. But it came out on the PS3, and the PS3 is region free, and I wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this game changes quite a lot of things for me this year, and we'll go into that after I talk about it. So I'd had this game for a long time, and I've played some of it. It's a very unique game. The only thing that's even anything remotely close to it at all is probably like Animal Crossing. And that's because
Is this
you,
is this the game about nothing? Um, that Thor High Heels spoke about?
oh, I don't know.
Uh,
I'm surprised you know that person though. I
yeah,
watch his
I
videos too.
love his videos. The you're
You've
like
actually seen me play some of this game before. Like that's how long I've had it.
it's like
Like it.
summer vacation, and you are just living like in Japan, right? Remember?
Yes,
Oh,
you're a
see,
little boy,
there's a bunch of
and
games in this series.
this game takes place in 1975. And I found out the demographic for this game is actually older men who are wanting to reminisce on their childhood.
Mm-hmm.
So people who grew up in the 70s. Um, so in this game, I believe your name's Boku, and you're at your uncle's house for the summer. I believe while your mother is pregnant. And that's why you're at your uncle's house, because they're kind of just sent you away for the last bit of her pregnancy to kind of like make her life easier. And probably to keep you from learning things about how babies are born. I don't know. um, and you kind of just go around and there's areas that you can kind of unlock as you progress. But basically, you're trying to make as many days interesting for Boku in his summer vacation as possible because he has a picture diary. They will draw a picture and write something in about what he's done that day. So, like, one day you save a nest of birds from a snake, or take a bath with your cousin, or something like that. Like, so you, it seems like a really easygoing game, but you kind of have to be a little bit strategic because if you do two things in one day that he would normally make a diary entry for, he will only make the diary entry for the first thing that you did. So you don't want to get too overzealous and try to do too much in one day, or else you're just keeping yourself from getting the amount of diary entries that you need. Because by the end of the game, based on how many entries you got and how many like bugs you caught and stuff, which is a very random thing, you will get a different ending. There's actually like 5 endings to the game. And the thing is, a lot of this information about this particular game in the series is not available readily.
So you
I
need to
don't know
figure it out.
how. I had to. Like, I don't know, a couple years ago, had started trying to look into more information about this game and find it, and somehow ended up on a Japanese website that had a Japanese guide. And I found that again in my bookmarks while I was at work, and during just my downtime, I made myself a whole Excel document, like spreadsheet of everything that I could figure out about the game using like Google Translate at the time.
Oh wow.
And so I have a whole list of all the bugs and stuff and generally where they're at. There's bottle caps you can collect in the game that will increase your the amount of air that you have because you can go swimming in the game. So I have that in the list, the bugs, the diary entries, all that stuff. And some of it I haven't figured out completely still, but I managed to get enough to enjoy the game a lot more because you can technically just kind of go through the game. Like, its time is going to pass
No matter what you
anyway.
do, right?
Yeah, it's based on like the amount of screens you go back and forth between. Like, you can only go so many screens in a day
Mm-hmm.
before, you know, your uncle will come get you and bring you back home for the evening. And then you can either explore around a little bit more until it gets too late and you fall asleep, or you can choose to voluntarily go to bed. And if you go to bed on your own, you can wake up early in the morning and do aerobic exercises with your family.
Oh,
Is there any
interesting.
point to that? No.
But you
But
can.
yes. And what was
You can
very
tell
key
this
about
is the type of game where anyone listening right now, you know if you're gonna like this game or not. Just from
yeah.
hearing it, you're like, I don't get it, or you totally get it.
Um, and because I don't know Japanese, there is a lot that's kind of lost on you because part of the charm of this game is sitting down with your family, like in the morning, during breakfast, and during dinner every day, and their conversations and what's going on. So I really want to play the other games in the series too, and those all only came out on the
P-
first game came out on the PlayStation 1, but they all came out on the PSP.
PSP, right?
And the PSP is region free, but I got rid of mine a long time ago because there's no games on it that I wanted to play.
And now there's games on it you want to play.
Well, I knew about these games when I got rid of it. But
if only there was a convenient way to play PSP games on like a personal computer.
that I may already have
There you go.
set in place, especially because, like, legality wise, even I don't even know if this is illegal because these games were never localized. Like, they didn't even come out here. Like, you never would have had my money anyway. So, like, I'm pretty sure nobody cares.
Yeah, I'm not gonna report you. I think you're okay.
And I definitely want to play the other games and will do so, and probably will even add them to my backlog, honestly, just as under PC downloads with the original system.
You beat the game. You beat the game.
The original system being the PSP.
Sure.
However, yes. Oh, I thought you were going to say something.
No.
Oh. The big thing that this game changed for me this year is, like, because I was like, I want to play the other games, but I really feel like I missed out on a lot of things with this game. Was that I decided finally, after many years, many years of watching anime and reading manga and all that stuff, that I was finally going to learn Japanese.
Really?
That's also why the title of this game changed on my backlog, because I physically typed in this hiragana myself, because I know I can read hiragana and katakana now, which sounds like it's great. You're like, oh, you can read. I can read it. I can't actually understand a lot of things yet because I don't have the vocabulary. Right. Also, the Japanese language is annoying because kanji just, oh my god. They only have so many sounds in Japanese. So what they did to make things less confusing, which in hindsight makes things a lot more confusing for everybody else, is they made kanji. So words that have the same sound will have a different picture. So you'll know what it's supposed to be, like which word it's supposed to be. But that also leads to there being like thousands of these things that you have to figure out what, how they're supposed to be read and like what they're supposed to mean and all that.
It's going to be some work, huh? It's going to
be a lot of work. Because you feel like you're on top of the world. Once you learn hiragana and katakana, you're like, oh, I can do this. And then you start getting into kanji, and there's like that meme with that little girl who's like crying while she's coloring, and she's like, like that's you trying to learn the rest of Japanese. Like trying to learn the grammar and the kanji and everything. That's why it's one of the hardest languages to learn, because it's
once
not.
You do learn it, you'll be able to play this game again.
And yes, and I already know more than I did. The thing is, like, I knew what the answers for yes and no were because I just knew what the symbols were supposed to look like. I couldn't actually read it, but now I can actually read it in the game. Just like immediately. I don't have to just say, oh, I know that the symbols for yes look like this and the symbols for no look like this. I can literally read out the words. Like I can read each symbol.
I see. So really, you shouldn't play the first and second game yet. You should wait until,
I'm definitely going to have to study a lot more. However,
a couple years.
However, that being said, immersion is a very good way to learn. And I thought it would be a good opportunity. I think you may have seen there was another game recently that was added onto my backlog that's fully in Japanese.
I did.
That one was a little bit of a mistake. I kind of learned it was like kind of similar to these Boku games. And I bought it and I tried like last night to play some of it just to kind of see. I knew there was going to be a lot of stuff I couldn't read, but I was like, I immediately this morning nulled it on my backlog because I was like, I'm not going to be able to play this game for like literally 2 years at least. Like this was way more reading than I thought it was going to be. I understood like 2 sentences and like 6 other words and the character names, and that was it. Which sounds really good, but this was in like a 15-minute span of seeing just nothing but walls of text, and I was like, "Oh,
you weren't ready.
I wasn't." However,
back to American games for now.
I did order some other games in Japanese. One of which I think will be a very good way for me to learn things, because people say, you should maybe play a game you've already played before. I thought, well, I don't necessarily want to do that, but because the DS is region free, there is a game that I should know for the most part very well, but I actually haven't played before.
Is the DS region free?
Yes. The 3DS is not region free. The DS is.
Right.
And that is Dobutsu no Mori, which
sounds familiar. What is that?
Animal Crossing.
Ah.
Because the only Animal Crossing game I haven't played is Wild World. And I was like,
people like
Wild World,
it wasn't,
and it wasn't that expensive at all to get the Japanese copy. So I've ordered that, and hopefully it'll be in like a few weeks.
Oh, there you go.
So I'm going to try that out. And I also ordered the first Harvest Moon game on the DS, which I don't think is actually that good, but it was really cheap. And I was like, I think this would be a way for me to be able to learn some words separately, you know, because there's repeating dialogue and such.
Right.
So, yes, that's also been very, very time consuming. I've only been learning Japanese about 3 weeks now, and I can easily say I've probably put at least 30 hours of my life or more into exclusively going over Japanese. Like, probably more than that.
Imagine you'll be able to watch anime and turn the subtitles off.
I'll be
Maybe
lucky if I can
never.
watch anime with the Japanese subtitles on. A lot of people apparently do that because they can't, like, the speaking, the way that it's spoken is obviously still sometimes different than how it's
Sure.
spelled, kind of. So for a lot of people, that makes it easier. But I don't know. It's a very exciting journey at the least, but very time consuming. So that's probably part of what's going to eat into slowing me down
Perfect.
this year while I play games. The other thing that's going to slow me down is that I have to move this summer. So that's going to ruin everything. And my work is really busy at that time too. So it's just going to be like, I'm going to be super busy at work, and then I'm going to have to come home and try to move. I don't even know where I'm living yet. I just know we have to leave. So
Fair enough.
but anyway,
it didn't show yet because you're still beating games.
Yes. Hopefully it doesn't slow me down too much, but we'll see. Because I am still playing games. I played basically a game that I played last year.
I was about to say, Michelle, didn't you beat this game last year? I swear you did.
I beat it on the PS1 last year, and this year I beat it on the PlayStation 4. And that's Medieval. And honestly, it's like basically the exact same game, just prettier. It really is. It's
the definitive version, or
I'd say it could go either way easily. I think it's still a little bit better and a little smoother than the PlayStation 1 version, but the PlayStation 1 game is very charming in its own way. It's a little bit slower paced, like your fighting is a little slower paced. But they're both great games. Fantastic. And apparently in the PS4 version, you can unlock the PlayStation 1 version, so it's kind of like...
Oh, so you might as well just get the PS4 version.
Exactly. And plus, the PlayStation store is going to be down anyway eventually in the next couple months, and you're not going to be able to buy it anyway because the physical copy is super expensive.
That reminds me, I did not see it on the PlayStation store when I looked earlier, so it's probably already gone. It might have already been gone whenever they put this one out, but...
Yeah, so I was still kind of glad I got it. I didn't know that, but I would have kind of wanted to play the original game first anyway. I don't know.
Yeah, perspective. You can see the differences.
Like graphically, it's a better game. It's a little bit, less rigid feeling to play, which in some case is in a few levels it's not necessarily your friend. For it to be smoother because it's kind of was designed originally for your rigid movement in mind. And a few of the levels that sucked in the original game still suck in the remake. So like the ghost ship, just fuck the ghost ship. I hated the ghost ship. It's still easier in the remake, but still definitely the most annoying level in the game. However, some other stuff like the fighting the gargoyles in the remake was way, way, way easier. Like, I don't know why that whole level, maybe it's just because I'd already done it numerous times and failed on the PlayStation 1 game, but...
It's kind of sad to think that they'll probably never put out the second one in a remake style.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm shocked they put out this one, but I heard it didn't particularly sell well, But
yeah, I mean, you can get it for like $20, and I kind of assumed that... Actually, I think you can get it for even less than that.
This is actually one of these games I expect to be going up in price suddenly because no one bought it, and then they'll go out of stock.
Just such a
and
shame.
Then it'll just jump up.
Because it was a very faithful, very well done remake. I mean, it's great. So.
What is nice is that at least it's a Sony game, so it'll come free somewhere along the way somewhere. But,
yeah.
It's
very
just
good,
medieval though, so
I kind of wanted to knock it out.
Yeah, and you did. And don't worry,
it's probably only like 6 hours long.
And don't worry, it's time for me to beat games. Just kidding.
Not quite yet.
Just kidding.
Not
yet.
And I'll say this is definitely shorter than Boku. Boku was like a little over 10 hours, I think, for me to finish. So, the next game I played because I was trying to go into my PS4 and knock some games out on it, because I definitely have more games than I would like that I haven't played on my PlayStation 4, or that I've just left behind never to play again, like Fallout 4 and like everything else I have on the PlayStation 4. And I got this one game quite a while back at like Second and Charles or something with store credit that I was just trying to use up, and I knew it was an adventure game, and that's the only reason I got it, because it was like, I don't know, like $5 or $6 in store credit. So, and it's called The Inner World, and it actually comes with 2 games. It comes with The Inner World and the sequel, The Inner World: The Last Wind Monk. So, I played the first game. And I had started playing it once before and just didn't end up doing anything with it. Didn't even get past the first like couple puzzles, because I don't know, I was just checking it out, but I wasn't really starting it then.
Gotcha.
And I started playing it this time, and I was getting into the game a little bit, and then I was like, this feels really oddly familiar. And then I was like, is this a Daedalic game?
Was it
like,
Daedalic?
Did I buy a Daedalic game? And I had to actually look it up, because I hadn't paid attention when I first started the game to like the screen that came up. They actually did not make this game. It really, really feels like they made this game, though. Like, it definitely feels like a more polished, much more polished, well-made game. But like, still stylistically, something about it really feels like one of their games.
I'm guessing
like one of their higher quality games, like Deponia or something like that,
okay.
where they actually animated things.
But was it one of the good Daedalic games or one of the bad Daedalic games?
It would be one of the good ones. It's
okay,
a little
there
bit.
You go.
It's a little bit bleak, though. I think that's the other reason I thought it was a Daedalic game, because it's like slightly depressing, which like was definitely. Oh gosh, I can't remember which one of their games it was. There's one of their games that was just like really depressing, like the entire way through the game. I think it was the Whispered World. Like, the whole thing was just bleak, and everything was just sad, and the main character was just complaining all the time. This game's not quite that bad, but it's definitely set in kind of a bleak, almost post-apocalyptic kind of world in a way. Like, there's somebody who's kind of risen to power because these gods have come down and they're turning people to stone. And you kind of uncover the truth about what's happening, and that these gods are actually engineered by somebody, and they're using this to take control over people, and you're trying to find a way to stop that from happening. So it ended up being a pretty good game. I liked it. The puzzles in this game were fucking terrible, though. Like, pretty much all, like, it starts off kind of deceptively easy, and then very quickly they just get really obtuse.
Maybe you're just not good at puzzles anymore, Michelle. You're falling off. Seems like every game you had to look up this year.
It's funny, because I thought about this game and I looked back in Memoria and the Dark Eye, and they really were not that bad in comparison at all. Like, this was like straight up a Sierra, old school Sierra game kind of an issue.
Gotcha.
Of like, how would anybody ever think in any capacity to put these things together? It's like there was one of the Strange Man games where like the first puzzle was you using a corkscrew to lockpick a door, and I was like, this just doesn't realistically make sense. It just doesn't.
Do that?
Like,
yeah.
Just because it's pointed, you immediately think you can lockpick a door with it. That's not what my first thought was.
Right.
It was kind of stuff like that, like, and I think they expected me to examine things in my inventory a little bit more. But I was playing this on a console, so the controls, they weren't bad, but they were definitely more cumbersome.
It's not optimal for a point and click.
Yeah.
Although I'm pretty sure you can plug in a mouse if you wanted to the PS4, but I'm sure your PS4 is not set up for a mouse and keyboard setup.
It's not, but you have me intrigued now, because I still have to play the second game.
Well,
I've started it, I just haven't finished it.
If you got a wireless one. I don't know if they all work or for all games, but it's worth looking into at least.
Yeah, for sure.
So the second game's coming later this year, I guess. Mm-hmm.
It's probably coming like later this week.
Oh, okay.
I said I already started it. I just haven't finished
I guess it's installed on your PS4 now. So to uninstall it, you have to beat them both, probably.
Yeah. But it was a good game. Like, story-wise, much better than a Daedalic game. Visually, much better. Puzzle-wise, kind of confused in a mixed bag. Like I liked some of them still, even though I really had to use a guide for them. Because even with Sierra games, I still really like them, even if I know I would never play them without a guide.
Right.
Like, like I still have moments where I could figure things out pretty easily, but once again, because of kind of how the interface is a little bit more cumbersome to use, because you kind of have to cycle through the things that you can look at on the screen. And now it is smart enough to know that if you're close to something or a series of items, to target those items first, because you like use the triggers to cycle through the items that are on the screen that you can look at or whatever. It sounds like it would be really annoying, but it really wasn't that bad at
Yeah, it
all.
sounds awful, but
It wasn't bad.
I think I've only tried to play 1 or 2 point clicks on a console. Maybe Grim Fandango and some of the Sam & Max games, because they had a big Telltale sale. No, just an adventure game sale on PS3, and I bought a bunch of games. But I don't know. Didn't like it. Speaking of
super
the devil,
offensive,
right?
though.
Speaking of the devil. Speaking of Sam and Max,
Yeah.
the next game I beat was for the challenge as well. It was the beat a sequel challenge for the month. It was Sam and Max Season 2. Later, they changed the name to Beyond Space and Time.
Which is my favorite Sam & Max game of the series, I think, actually.
It is very good, and I like, because it's doing the episodic thing like all Telltale games did, and it's sad to say did and not do, but as they did.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool because each episode is pretty self-contained, actually. They have their own settings. Like, you always go back to the main setting near the office, but there's always like another setting, an additional setting that's pretty exclusive to that episode usually. So you get to use to like basically like 4 or 5 areas to explore in, and then, everything happens within those 4 or 5 areas, which is nice because once you finish an episode, the next episode will be fresh and will be new. But also, as the name implies, there's this whole time travel element going on, the Beyond Space and Time thing, and sometimes it's just used for a quick gag, but other times it was like used pretty well, to a good extent, to where like towards the end of the game, like some of the gags paid off that I actually forgot about, and I was like, oh yeah, what did happen to that lava, stuff like that, and I was like, oh yeah, this is very good game. It is the Telltale before they made Walking Dead, basically, because the first Walking Dead season is kind of basically their last true point and click. After that, they got just like, hey, make decisions, make choices, which is fine, nothing wrong with those games, but they're still making point and click adventures here that require you to use your items in specific ways. And I appreciated that you could change Max's hint level from anywhere from 1 to 5, where like 1 he gives no hints at all, and 5 he gives hints every 2 seconds. And I put it on 3 because I was like, well, I don't want to look anything up. This will be convenient if I am screwing around too much. And it was convenient, actually. It was actually helpful. He would just say stuff like, let's go back to the other place, and you're like, that must mean that what I need to do is over there. Okay. I think that's
one of the best ways to do hint systems in games. It really is.
I think I only had to look up like one thing maybe, and then once I saw it, I was like, oh, okay, I see. Very good game, very funny. Sam Max is always funny. And the third game, The Devil's Playhouse, I own that one too, multiple times over, so I will be playing that as well, hopefully sooner than later. I'm kind of preoccupied in things right now, but sooner than later.
Yeah, hopefully play it this year. It's actually it's a little bit different than the first 2 games. I'll say that. Like, I feel like there was some kind of time gap between the first 2 games and the third game.
I actually believe you're right. There's something going on, because I think Season 3 just came out as The Devil's Playhouse, and that's when they changed all the names of the previous games, and there was something weird going on with some dealings with some companies. So
because it plays a little bit differently than the other games. It's not anything in a bad way, but it's definitely noticeably a different. Like there was some time that passed between those games.
Yeah, I've heard it's kind of weird. A lot of people like that one the best, I've noticed, and some people adamantly don't like it. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
All right, and at this point, I'm at 13 games and John's at 8. So he's behind so far this year, but I'm sure that's we're pretty early in the game still. I decided because I was going to try to do the backlog challenge for what was it last month, where it was play a game, that in a genre that you don't like,
Right.
and I didn't really have anything for that, because I don't typically buy games anymore in genres that I don't like.
Sure.
Sorry, there was like a big flash, so I like stopped what I was saying in the middle of it because it stopped raining a while ago. But the only game I can think of that I had anything even close to was World of Horror, because it's a roguelike and it's also this like weird kind of D&D dice rolling type of situation.
Is it a roguelike? I have no idea.
It is a roguelike, actually, which is weird. Kind of, it's like you can go through. I'm going to explain this game a little bit for you. It's a very weird game.
I have played it, but I only went through it one time, so whether it was a roguelike or not wasn't initially apparent to me.
Like, you have quick saving available to you, but you can't like do a regular, like a real save, because there's no point, because like it's like you do a run and see how far you can get, and if you die, you'll have to restart. I mean, there's a story, but there's also like, you do the mysteries, and those add up to you get keys after you finish each one. And then the keys open up the lighthouse, and in the lighthouse, I guess you break what's causing the darkness over that to come over the world.
I see. That's what I remember. I remember there being mysteries, and I think we played through the first one, and I know the game is still early access, right?
It is actually, but it is beatable.
I think the plan is for them to release more mysteries. That's the idea. There'll
Probably
be more mysteries.
Because thankfully the game is beatable right now, and it actually has quite a lot of content still. Like, there are still quite a lot of mysteries. I don't know what I'll say one add to this game, because each mystery also has multiple endings, so you can get an ending, and it depends on how many things you investigate. Because your goal for the mystery, it'll say investigate like the school twice to end this mystery. However, if you just investigate the school twice and you don't go anywhere else, you're immediately probably going to get the worst ending for that mystery. Whereas if you keep going to whatever area is circled on your little map, I guess, you will continually gain more and more useful information to determine what's actually going on. And then, by the time you end the mystery, hopefully you'll get a better ending or a different ending.
Quite the striking art style too.
Yes, it's like a
Macintosh RPG.
Yes, super cool. Very Junji Ito inspired. Very body horror. Super cool. Looks fantastic.
But I bought this game for you, right?
Yeah.
I bought it when
doesn't even remember.
I remember, because I remember when I was trying to buy it for you. It was like your birthday last year or the year before.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's my birthday last year.
I was trying to look for something different, but that wasn't going to be too long, and I was like, "There's nothing like this." So
I have a wish list, and he just doesn't even pick things off of it anymore. He's like, "Nah, forget it."
Well, I guess I wasn't thinking about it.
Which is kind of nice, actually. It's kind of a nice little surprise.
I guess that's it. I want to surprise you with something. So World of Horror, did you like it overall, or did you not like it?
Because I didn't actually put a rating when I beat it, because I kind of beat it unexpectedly. Like, I played it through a few times before and did some runs and just like had no idea what the fuck I was doing, because I don't know how to play these types of games at all. Because there's very much like there's like dexterity checks and stuff on things that happen, and knowledge checks, and if you fail them, obviously you fail whatever just happened, and usually you lose health and stuff. And like the first couple times I played, I didn't even know how to regain health at all. I just like by pure luck got almost to the end of the game, except I got to like a giant boss thing and I just couldn't defeat it.
Just wrecked you.
Yeah, and I was like, well, that was fun, and I was like, I'll come back to this later, and then later became like 6 to 8 months later. And this time I just I looked up some stuff to kind of figure out where to go. It was like I was like, how do I heal? Like, for one thing, let me at least figure out the most basic things. And I kind of just went through a little bit by luck, because there are definitely ways you can manipulate these types of games to be in your favor.
Sure.
Without like cheating or anything. And I went through all the mysteries, and I was like, cool. And I was like, what do I do now? And I was like, oh, there's a lighthouse thing over here. And I was like, oh, I have to use the keys on this. That's what these are for. and there's a bunch of different types of checks as you go up for events. And I still failed a lot of them, but I still had health at the end. And I was like, okay, so do I have to fight a boss? And then I just like clicked on this thing in the lighthouse, and it was like, "Well, you win." And I was like, "What?" I was like,
No
"Is that?"
boss?
I was like, am I done?" And I was like, oh, okay. I
Maybe
guess I am done."
maybe that's something that will change as it leaves early access. You know,
Maybe so. I mean,
maybe
I
it'll be
definitely know
worth.
there are other bosses. Like I ran into this large, like eldritch, like horror kind of boss before, and I don't know if that was just at the end of one of the mysteries or what. I just don't remember. But
When I played,
I know that
I ran into one at the end of the first mystery, and he whipped my ass. So
what's super cool is that you actually have achievements in this game, like within the game, not like Steam achievements.
mm-hmm.
And when you unlock these, they actually unlock other things in the game for you, like different other companions in the game, other weapons in the game. Super cool. Like you unlock something for doing the first run, and you subsequently unlock things for doing a second, third, fourth, and fifth run and beating the game. There's just I really like stuff like that, like giving me an incentive to keep going, to be able to get like all the endings for all the mysteries.
Right, instead
Because
of just you replay it the same way, right?
yeah,
That's
because
not
they
fun.
have like a different seed every time, and the mysteries that you get won't necessarily be the same. Like I had a few that I had already gotten endings on, um, like out of the ones that I had to pick, but I also had one mystery that I'd never done at all. And I think it's just a dice roll every time of which mysteries you actually get that you have to do,
That's cool.
and how hard they are. Because apparently some of them you don't really have to fight anything in. So sometimes they're a good mystery to start with to try to get a weapon from them, like or something like that. So it's pretty cool. I really liked it. I'd like to play a lot more of it though. I think it'll be like a 4-star game on my backlog.
Yeah, it'll be definitely interesting to see when it comes out of early access. What did they add? Especially because it's already beatable. Like,
It's already beatable and
what
it
are
really does
they?
have a lot of content
What are
already.
they planning to add? Is it just more randomly things that could happen? Because maybe that's it. Maybe it's just more things that could happen within what we already have.
Yeah, or
But
maybe it's just different main endings would be kind of cool too.
yeah, we'll have to see. So that's your last game for this
Yes.
quarter.
Yep.
It is March 28th, correct? So this is when we're recording. I still got a couple more games. So meanwhile, as soon as I finish Yakuza Kiwami 2, and I finished up God of War about a week or so later, uh, I instantly installed the remastered collection for Yakuza. Because something I was really craving more Yakuza, and I was also feeling like because Yakuza 3 is the earliest game in the series I'm going to play. It came out in 2010, 2011 on the PS3. I'm not going to go back and play the original PS2 games because I've already played the remakes.
Yeah.
So this is as old as it gets. And I've heard people say, look, it's a little wonky to go back to this old of a game. So I wanted to start playing it now. So that way I don't. Because if the longer I waited, I felt like I was going to sort of feel like, oh, I don't want to go back to something that old, you know, and maybe I
Yeah.
would never play it. So I just went right into it. And yes, it was wonky at first because the way Kiryu controls, very weird at first because it's so different. But the more I played it, once I got a couple hours in, I realized how not different it was. It is just Yakuza. That game series, I know a lot of people when Like a Dragon came out said, "Well, why are they doing the turn-based battles? Like that's weird. It's a beat 'em up brawler. Why would you go turn?" Because it's the same game for 8 other games now. Like the
Yeah.
exact same game. They had to do something, guys. Um, and Yakuza 3 is the same thing. It is a much slower story. It takes its time. It is specifically our man has retired basically from the Yakuza. Of course, he doesn't stay out for long, but he's living his life. He started up a little orphanage, and he's a simpler man, And then everything goes to shit, of course, and but it really takes its time with the whole orphanage thing and getting to know these characters. They're not just random kids; you know every single one of them by the end. It's all building to a central point where things go wrong, of course. Um, this game oddly is a little bit shorter in the amount of chapters. There's 12 chapters where the other ones are more like 17 or so. But somehow still took the same amount of time as all the other ones. Took 30 hours to beat this one. I actually think I spent more time on this than Yakuza Kiwami 2. I don't know how. I did do a couple more side quests. I did 85 or something, 86 side quests in this. All a lot of fun. The side quests in this one were actually, there were some really good ones as well. There were a lot of shitty ones too. Not shitty, but just kind of like chase this guy, catch him. And it's like, okay, I did it. Give me my money that I don't need. By the end of the game, I had like $3 million. I was like, I don't know what to spend this on. I don't care. You can buy weapons, but you can also just beat people up. But this game is still Yakuza. It was still a lot of fun. The single player story was really good too. Although it was slow, but also it was weird because they did some like 2 or 3 moments where they just dumped a ton of plot on you. And they were like, hey, this is what...
Lots of exposition.
Right. Like huge amounts of exposition. They were like, here's what's going on. And you're like, okay, this could have probably been spread out over the course of the last 8 hours or whatever, but okay. But either way, it's still an enjoyable game. Probably the lesser of all the ones I've played, but it was still good. Still really good. So I'm looking forward to playing the fourth. As soon as this game ended, I installed the fourth game. But I've stopped myself from moving on for now.
Yeah, you don't really want to burn out on that. You don't want to be like I was and play all of the Ace Attorney games just back to back to back.
Right, especially because these are open world games. So
yeah.
I have to be careful because I went from Kiwami 2 to 3 very quickly. So that was already pretty dangerous. So I took a break from it for now. And then the last game I beat for the quarter, my 10th game, is Shady Part of Me. I actually bought this game on the Epic Game Store. I had a little $10 coupon, and you had to buy a game that cost $15 to use it. And I was like, I always forget to use these, so I'll just use it real quick. And this game is one of those dark puzzle platformers. You've seen one, you've seen them all. Limbo, Inside, Little Nightmares. There's a million of them. Those are the highest quality examples, but there's 1,000 other examples that are of lesser quality. And what intrigued me, I think, I didn't remember what intrigued me when I bought it. But watching back, it's because there's 2 perspectives. There's a little girl, and she moves around in a 3D space and solves puzzles. And then there's a shadow on the wall that moves independently of her. That's in 2D. And
what's that game on the Wii that this reminds me of right now? Oh man,
is it a 2D game?
It's like a side-scrolling thing with a shadow in the background, and you solve puzzles with using your shadow.
See, I don't remember, but I know what you're talking about, and that's what it reminded me of too.
Lost in Shadow.
Lost in Shadow, right? So you interact with these 2 different characters, and they're mostly independent, but you gotta move a box so that way the shadow is cast and the character in the background can move, or vice versa, or something like that. And for the first, it's broken into 4 acts. And for the first act, I was kind of like, yeah, this is what I guess I expected it to be. It's fine. It's okay. But by the second and third and fourth act, it actually started to really get pretty good with the puzzles. Started to get really smart with the puzzles and do some really cool things. There's a point where you start walking as the shadow and you go upside down and you're like, oh, I see we're doing stuff, huh? We're not just doing the simple move the box so she can walk over it thing. We're doing some cool stuff. And that's how it stayed till the end. And it wasn't terribly long either. I think if you look it up, some people say it takes 3 hours. I'm pretty sure it took me a little bit more than that. But it is a puzzle game, so it all depends how quickly you get the puzzles done. I don't know if I go out of my way to get it, but if you do have it in your library, it's certainly worth playing. Just because of the different elements of using the 3D space and the 2D space. It's just kind of cool. A little bit different than your typical dark platformer.
Yeah.
But that's it. I'm at 10 games. Michelle's at 14. We still got a long way to go.
Oh, yeah.
What's your plans for the rest of the year, Michelle?
Once again, kind of every once in a while, I really like to go back to games that I've had for a long period of time or that I've already started and try to go back through and play them either again or just play them in general. And I've already started doing that with like some of my PS4 games and stuff. But That's going to be the big thing, and also trying not to buy too many games that are in Japanese that I can't actually play yet.
Right?
Though
Because
I
it seems like you
do,
were excited about it, but you need to reel
I
back a
reel
little
it in a
bit.
little bit. Like I think Animal Crossing really is a really great choice because even like learning simple things like the word apple, like stuff like that, because I can isolate and learn things that way, and characters repeat the same dialogue a lot, so it really
Right.
works out with that game. But there's other games that I do want, like there's a Shin Chan slash Boku crossover game that's kind of coming out on the Switch this summer that looks awesome that I actually really would like to have at some point. And there's also Yokai Watch 4 because the Switch is region free, and I would really like Yokai Watch 4.
Oh yeah,
So
it's probably not coming over.
yeah,
None
it's
of
not.
them
I mean,
have came over since the second game, right?
the third game's available digitally, and
Oh,
that's
okay.
it. I don't think it ever came out physically, even in Japan, honestly, because I can't find it on
Hmm.
eBay anywhere.
Interesting.
But I'd love to have the fourth game at some point.
I think personally, I wanted to say I was gonna beat more shorter games now, but I actually don't think I am.
I mean, you're starting off with a lot of long games, so
I think I'm gonna keep playing long games. I don't know what it is, but every time I think about a game to play, it's a long game. That's what I want to play. Right now I'm playing Mass Effect 2. I'm gonna play Yakuza 4, probably 5 as well, at least by the end of the year.
I
And
I
there's a
am
bunch of
hoping
longer games I want to play too. So I think that's
I am
gonna
hoping to
be.
finish Digimon World 3 this year. We'll
Oh,
see how that goes.
good luck.
I
Good
wanted
luck.
it to be this summer, but like I said, I'm gonna have to move this year, so I don't know how that's gonna work out because that's gonna be.
How
I was
much do
very
you
very
like
preoccupied.
grinding? How much do you like grinding?
Yeah.
Especially with
I
those
mean,
slow
I'd pretty much
battles.
have to do that like I was doing before. I would watch YouTube videos and like play at the same time and just like grind because I don't have to pay a whole lot of attention. I
It
have
was
to
so
say,
much easier as a kid because I just liked unlocking the Digivolutions. So I grinded for fun to get the Digivolutions. But man, it was slow. I think my save file has almost 400 hours on it before I beat
oh
it.
God.
Now it won't take you 400 hours,
The
but
game is only supposed to be like 35 to 40 hours long,
yeah,
people, just to put it in perspective there.
I just loved unlocking the Digivolutions. Luckily now we have better games to do that type of thing in, but it was cool to me at the time. It was the only
Oh,
Digimon game we owned, so
and beating Ring Fit is like a big thing for me eventually because this game is long as fuck. It's really not any longer than any regular RPG. It's apparently only about 30 hours, but it's like that's 30 hours of actual exercising, which is a lot.
yeah.
And I just hit 10 hours on it last night. And I don't play Ring Fit every single day because I do other workouts in between.
Mm-hmm.
And what's hilarious is that I started doing other workouts in between, like more stuff with strength training and weights, partially so I could do better at Ring Fit.
That's funny.
Because I was like, man, I gotta really like get some strength training in here if I want to be able to make it through this damn game because it's taking forever. And it really does kind of become a little bit of a grind, but I have really genuinely gotten a lot more fit from playing this game. So
Yeah, I will.
um,
You mentioned new Pokemon Snap earlier. I'll be getting that at some point.
I would really like to get that. It always hurts my soul to pay like $60 for a game,
Yeah.
especially one that I don't think is going to be that long. I think
Oh,
Pokemon
it's
Snap is
not
going to
like
be like
3
4 or
hours.
5
Yeah,
hours.
yeah, exactly.
4 or 5 is like the best I can hope for. You know.
I'll probably get the Diamond and Pearl remakes too, even though I
Oh, I
actually
forgot that was happening.
hate Diamond and Pearl.
Which is weird because I
But
really love Diamond and Pearl, and I thought about getting Pearl in Japanese or something because people say that it's a good thing to start out with games as well.
but I don't know. We'll see. It just depends what's going on at the time. But I didn't like Sword and Shield, but obviously the Diamond and Pearl remakes are very different style.
Yeah,
It literally looks like it's
I
just a
haven't
straight remake of Diamond
I
and
haven't
Pearl.
actually seen. Yeah, I was gonna say I haven't actually seen anything of them myself, but I imagine that it's probably gonna be kind of like how Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee and stuff
No.
were, where it's just like straight remake. Like,
Uh, well, because Let's Go had the weird mechanics of catching and stuff like that, and no wild battles. Like this, literally just looks like a remake. Like they actually tried to emulate the style too. So it's like
huh?
top down, and like they got big heads, and It's not made by Game Freak, so it's
Oh, that's kind of cute. I'm looking at pictures now.
yeah. When I
It's
first
kind
saw
of,
it, I was like, this looks like fucking garbage. But the more I looked at it, I was like, I think I'm okay with it
to be
actually.
honest, that's kind of how I felt about Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee as well. Like in terms of how I looked, I was like, oh, this literally looks like a mobile game
Right,
because they kind of do. But then when you put it in perspective, you're like, I mean, is that really necessarily the worst thing ever? I mean,
right.
they look all right.
So I guess those will come sometime later this year, and I'm sure other games. I'm gonna try
What
to
is this
get
going to be on? It's going to be on the Switch. Duh.
yeah, Switch, and try to get through some other games by the end of the year. I don't think I'll be getting. I would like to get a PS5 sometime this year, but it kind of just
I know I won't.
depends on what games come out. Like the new Ratchet, I want, and Resident Evil 8. I know that'll be out on last gen consoles, but I'm not gonna play it there. So
I think
uh,
I have a little list of games that I had planned to buy this year, and it's funny because every month I haven't been buying any of the things that I was going to. Except I did buy Strong Beds, cool game for attractive people, which is a game that I really wanted, uh, because it had actually, for a while, Telltale's games were completely removed from digital stores. I
right.
don't know if you had noticed that,
I remember
but
when it happened. Yeah.
uh, and it's only very recently that they got put back on because literally, like, I was looking at this game at the end of last year and it wasn't available, and now it is. So,
Yeah, I think
um,
their company went bankrupt, so people had to buy all those properties back up, and then they had to pay the
mhm.
licenses again. So, uh,
So I
yeah,
finally got that, but the other stuff I was going to get this year was Professor Layton and the Azran Legacy was going to be a for sure because I'm so worried about the stores closing down. I was going to get Chibi Robo Clean Sweep, Little Nightmares 2, and I think Psychonauts 2, and I think that was the only stuff that I was like, I'm definitely going to get these games. But I do have like some other stuff that I'm kind of interested in looking at as well. And none of it's new stuff though, not really, because I just don't keep up with new games anymore very well.
sure. I mean,
I
by
kind
the
of hear
time you
about
get
them
to them, they'll
later.
just be cheaper, or you missed them
Exactly.
entirely. That could happen too. But
Um,
um,
because I'm trying to keep my backlog under control, and then I've just gotten a little too excited with the Japanese games, and now I have like one that I can't even really play right now, and then a couple others on the way that I should be able to play Animal Crossing till I beat it just fine, because that's like I just pay off the house. Like I know how to play the game already,
sure.
so
Speaking of keeping our backlogs under control, though, let's get them out of control. Michelle, we
oh
made an agreement
yes, yes
that
we
we
did.
would buy each other a game for this podcast, and I guess our intention is probably we haven't discussed this, but probably that by the time we meet again, we'll have at least maybe played these games
Yes.
or to some extent. And I think I don't
Oh
know how you did it, but I tried not to pick a long game or a
yeah.
RPG or anything ridiculous like that.
The
And we
one
have
the one I picked isn't super long. It's like it's just, it's not super long. It's not like an RPG or anything, but
we haven't told each other what we bought each other. We haven't and we haven't bought them yet, just in case, because we
yes.
all have so many games that we need to check and make sure that we don't have access to already.
And one of the purposes of this was something that I had suggested to John that we do, was so that just to share a game that we liked and wanted to, see the other person's opinion on.
Mm-hmm.
And I initially really wished that we could do this with physical games and just like borrow each other's games, because physical games are actually getting extraordinarily expensive. Like I used to
Mm-hmm.
own only like one or two rare games in my collection, and now I probably have at least a dozen that games that are over like $70 at this point that I didn't even know.
Sending things to the mail, very risky, very risky. Um, so I'll start. I'll
All right.
start. So again, if you have access to this game somehow, and maybe you just have, but I'm pretty sure you don't. So let me start off by saying I have a couple favorite series, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, the Tales of RPGs, which are RPGs, so you're not gonna play those, right? Uh, Kingdom Hearts. I remember you have played Kingdom Hearts 2 and you hated it so much that
I
that
didn't
was the
necessarily hate it. It's more
wow,
like
that was
I
enough
just
for
kind of knew it. Yeah, that was enough for me.
you to dip out of the series forever, right?
Yeah.
And that was way back when it came out. Um, Danganronpa, you liked the first game, but you haven't played the second one, so it makes me think, oh, she doesn't like them that much. So I'm just like, so this is my last ditch effort. This is another one of my favorite series ever.
Mhm.
A 5-star rated game on my backlog. Originally came out on the PlayStation 1. I am going to get you Metal Gear Solid. The GOG port released.
Interesting.
I know the
Very
GOG
interesting.
port is a little iffy. It does need it may take a little bit of work to get a controller working. It is possible.
Hmm.
It is like a 6-hour game.
Hmm.
I don't know if that includes cutscenes, but I know some people, you might be wondering, because the original Metal Gear is on there as well. Why didn't I go with that one? Because it's old, and I think actually those games are good too. They're more enjoyable if you have played through the rest of the series and go back, so you can fill in these blanks with your own imagination about what's going on, because those games don't really explain that much. So you just fill in with your like, oh, this is what was going on. Even though it really wasn't, because it's an old game. And the Metal Gear 2 isn't even on GOG, so it's kind of iffy to go back that far anyway. But Metal Gear Solid is a great starting point, and it's a very good story, wacky, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. And even if you don't, I just want to hear your opinion because it does go crazy places, and the controls are a little of the time, but I think you will enjoy it.
Like that was a very interesting game choice. Like I never would have guessed that actually at all.
As soon as I saw it on GOG, I was like, you know what? This is one of my favorite game series of all time, and it's a 5-star game. I would like to know what she thinks about it.
For your game, it was kind of hard for me to pick something because I wanted to pick something you hadn't played, but I also didn't want to just straight up pick only like point and click adventure games because that is the majority overall of what I've played on the PC, honestly. Sure. So I decided to pick a game that I actually played last year and really liked. That would be a very chill game to play and be kind of interesting. And that's Eastshade.
Oh, the Morrowind game.
Yeah, because I was like, he'll at the very least appreciate some Morrowind aesthetics.
Yeah.
Even though it's got some issues, like I said, with the frame rate on and off, it's like some optimization problems. I still think the game is very much worth playing.
Well, yeah, I will check it out.
And be a nice little in-between game, I think, for you in between other longer games that you're playing and stuff. Because it's still like probably 8 to 10 hours.
I was about to say, wasn't Eastshade kind of one of your longer games?
Yeah, that's why you're like, I want to get you something long, and I was like, what I'm picking for you may have taken me like 13 hours.
Okay, but it'll be all right. It'll be all right.
Yeah. It's cool. Very much easy to pick up and put down, honestly. So
you're gonna have Metal Gear Solid. I'm gonna have Eastshade. Hopefully we'll buy those for each other after this. I guess. Hopefully we have played them so we can discuss them by next time. At the very least, played them. But we'll see. Do you have anything else you want to say, Michelle?
Let's see. I don't think so because I don't plan on getting any other consoles this year or doing anything else other than like hopefully trying to sort of keep my backlog under control.
Right.
It kind of got up there for a minute. It got up to like 50 games this year because I started just adding games that I didn't add before.
Mm-hmm.
And I was worried I was going to forget I owned them. So,
me too. I was just adding all these Twitch games that they gave us for free. There was about 80 of them, and I got to
Jesus!
I got to the point where it was like, hey, here's this 40th anniversary SNK collection. And I was like, I think I'm just gonna stop adding for now because I don't want to look this up what's in here right now. But I'll do it later. That's why it's so scary to buy games for each other. You're like, do I own this? I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, that's why I had to like go back through the stuff and.
Pretty sure Eastshade is not on Amazon. It's a little bit high price for that.
And that's one of the reasons I was like, oh, thank God it's on sale right now.
Right, and GOG's also having the sale, even though Metal Gear Solid's only $10 game, so it's not that big a deal. You know what? Also, I think I'm gonna buy myself Silent Hill 4 while I'm there because I have the Xbox version, but it doesn't
Oh, on
emulate
GOG.
well. Yeah, it doesn't emulate well on the
Yeah, I saw that.
360.
It's on.
So
That's on my wish list too on GOG. I was like, oh,
yeah, so
if you
we'll
now
get
if
it.
you could only get all the other Silent Hill games on here, that would be pretty
Yeah, it would
dope.
be cool. Luckily, I just own the rest of them physically, but it would be nice to get them on PC legitimately.
Yeah.
But anywho, that is it for now. Michelle is at 14 games. I'm at 10. We'll probably meet back up at the end of July and or beginning of August, and we'll see where we're at by then. But appreciate everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
Bye.